up, Donnie.
Where did you come from? I met a new friend.
Real or imaginary?
28 days,
Imaginary.
6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. Do you believe in time travel?
I'm going to tell you a little story today about a young man whose life was completely destroyed by fear.
Wake up.
You want to tell Mom and Dad why you stopped taking your medication?
I've been watching you. Do you believe in time travel? Wake up, Donnie.
Welcome back, everybody, because as you know, we like to cover movies once in a while. So I have my friend Cologero, who I think covers movies the most fun with me. Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
We've already done Cowboys and Aliens and Heathers.
Yes, in theory, we did Heathers. Are those still up? Or that was,
Yep, in 4 parts. So when we did Heathers, if anyone hasn't watched that yet, I couldn't get it to upload after I edited it. It just was taking over a day to upload. So we just tried to show it live and it crashed 3 or 4 times. But it got all the way up. All 4 parts are there, and it still hasn't been pulled down, even though there was copyright infringement of some kind from South America or something.
Interesting. Yeah, but this one was definitely fun going through D0NNE-DARK0. I guess going back and doing it like we did Cowboys and Aliens, going through it first and then just talking about it. But yeah, this it's one of my favorite movies, so it was cool revisiting it. I actually didn't remember almost any of it, so that was fun too.
I watched it once, probably, it was a 2001 movie, I think, and I must have watched it maybe in college, and I know I didn't get it at all, didn't understand it whatsoever, and I never ever returned back to it, never thought about it, never tried to figure out what it meant. So this time I knew it would be fun because I knew it was weird the first time. And anyway, so I hadn't seen it in all that time, and I enjoyed the heck out of it this time. I watched it back to back 2 days in a row. I watched it and just didn't take any notes because I just wanted to just kind of see it again. And then I watched it again the next day, and I had a lot of fun. And I was excited to talk about it. So I've been holding it in all this time.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I wanted to rewatch it like just without taking notes, but I've just been I'm not good at time management. Let's put it that way. I'm very scatterbrained.
Me
There's so
too.
much happening these days, but yeah, no, it was interesting. It had a lot of I definitely took note of a lot of the same Hollywood stuff that I'm sure, the writer gets a memo and says, "Oh, you have to put this scene in, I have to put that." But as far as the movie itself, like it's very well thought out. Like you could tell, like this guy thought of every single last thing that he put in seems to have meaning towards the plot. And then it just sort of circles around, and I don't know. I don't know what I was going with
I
that, but
agree
know what
with
I'm
you
saying.
because, well, when you were saying circle around, we'll get to this, but it's possible that this movie is actually a reoccurring loop. We'll get to that. So, but the movie starts out with him laying in the street. So before this screenshot, right?
Yes.
He's laying in the street on a mountaintop, and he stands up and he smiles.
Okay, yeah. And then so it seems like he's been sleepwalking, like kind of having like sleepwalking episodes. And I guess that's where it stems from. That's why he's on medication. And he seems to be having episodes. And I thought that was interesting. Do you have any thoughts on this? I kind of skipped past this.
Well, the reason I did is because these are not all my original thoughts. There are a few original ones, but this one was not my original thought. But this we'll get into what this book and time travel stuff is about this movie. But that he could be possibly on a reoccurring loop until he gets it right, and maybe why he stood up and laughed is because he's like, oh, okay, I didn't get it. Time to start again.
Oh, yo, that's really cool. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense.
I thought so too, because I was like, why
Yeah.
else would he stand up and laugh? So yeah, apparently he's sleepwalking or something. And what another thing I noted was I used to listen to a lot of 80s music, but they played Echo and the Bunnymen, The Killing Moon. And the words of that song are fate up against your will.
Interesting. So like you don't want this to happen, but it's happening no matter whatever you want because it's fate.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
pretty cool.
I noted that I used to love that song. I used to listen to it a lot, but otherwise he rides home. So since your first scene is him at the dinner table, I'll just talk. He rides home. He rides by a sign that says Middlesex Halloween Carnival. And Frank drives by in the very beginning. Frank drives by him in a red car.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I should have watched this a second time. That's awesome. I love stuff like that.
Right
Okay,
there.
there we go.
Yep, there it is. So Frank is a main character we're going to get to, and Frank drives by. And what I like about this movie is the slow motion to fast motion stuff. Did you notice the cinematography there, where it would slow down in slow motion, then speed up, and then kind of go back to normal?
I like how they were going through with that. And I like the artistic it was very well put together. Especially there were some scenes where I was like when it was going through his eye, where I was actually slowing down and it was almost it was foreshadowing almost with blips in his eye and stuff like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we get to see Maggie Gyllenhaal, who is Jake Gyllenhaal's real sister in real life, plays his sister in this movie. And then he comes in and his mom is reading the book It. And then he, I think he goes to his room or something. And I noticed a big eye poster, one eye in his room.
The one in his room.
Bed. Maybe it's later. So maybe we should just go to the. No, you're right. Let's go to the dinner table first. We got to do this first. So
Okay, yeah, because then I saw something else in his room too, which I thought was interesting. But one thing, I thought this was showing like a good the disconnect with parents and kids and stuff, kind of fighting, and I thought it kind of illustrated the lack of discipline, which I thought was weird because like in '88 when this movie takes place. That wasn't as much of a thing. I don't know. It wasn't a thing with my parents. If I said half these things, my dad would have leapt across the table like the Flash and cracked me in the mouth. It would just been like a blur. But I thought it was, and then she's saying, "Oh, I'm gonna vote for Dukakis," and it's funny because then I was like, "All right, what? Oh, this is '88," and then I'm looking at the date on his pills. I'm like, "All right, summer of '88," and then literally right as I got that all down. It flashed the date in like the next scene. So I was like, okay, that was a waste of time. But
that's good
yeah,
though. You're analytical. Yeah, they're swearing, they're saying the F word and everything to each other. But again, it's the rebellion. They want kids to be rebellious. When I say they, I'm talking now about the like ubiquitous kind of Luciferian underlying society of movies and Hollywood. That they are the ones that they want this rebellious childhood situation, and they've certainly been pushing that we all have a lot of mental problems, and so of course he's on, I don't know what kind of medication. I never saw whatever he's supposed to be taking.
I may have freeze framed that. And I looked into it and he's taking doxepin. And then are these changing? I'm sorry. Last time I did my screen share, it was like all jacked up. All right.
I can
so
see. Yeah.
I went with this and I found that it was doxepin. And it was an antidepressant, and it was like psychotic conditions or psychiatric conditions and stuff like that. And then further, I actually found a thread on it, and it was saying,
"Oh, good."
So, and then these people were saying that
a side effects is hallucinations. Well, side effects.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was just gonna say that like they're saying that can have like psychotic episodes and hallucinations and stuff as the side effects for doxepin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was just saying, that's kind of, I guess, in line with maybe like setting you up to think that's what this is about or whatever. Now, I know later in the movie, she tells them, oh, you're taking placebos. They're just water pills. So I thought that was weird too.
I missed
Like,
that.
so is that true? Was the psychiatrist lying to him? I mean, that's just, she told him that like right after he basically admitted some bad stuff, and you
Hmm.
could tell that she's about to like rat him out. But so I don't know. I guess you could go either way. Like, was he really taking the pills and she was lying to him? And these are psychotic episodes. Were they really? Were they really just placebos? Like she told him that. But I just thought that was interesting. Oh, this is, and then it could. I feel like um I feel like this movie he went through a lot of like control systems. Like I feel like it's a good breakdown of all the ways they, like you were saying, with it, they try to turn the kids against the parents and stuff like that. But I thought this is interesting that it starts off with the father is watching this and Dukakis is calling out the Panamanian drug runners, and then it cuts to Bush spouting spin on it, and just kind of shows you how both sides are kind of both bad, and kind of like
Oh,
pitting
for
up
sure.
against each other and making you pick one so you can fight with your parents. Well, I'm voting, which tells them I'm voting Dukakis, and then they're like, well, yeah, if you want to give half your taxes away, and then it just shows that like, well, and then they're both bad anyway. Like one takes half your taxes, the other one is doing shady stuff. Well, they're both doing shady stuff, but I don't know. I thought that was interesting to show that right off the bat. It's one of the biggest control systems there is.
I think that is too, because there's not a lot of that where they're even going to use real presidents or president or people running for president and real footage like that. And, we know now that Bush talks Illuminati, or always did talk Illuminati. He's passed away, obviously, but talked Illuminati, Thousand Points of Lights, and New World Order multiple times. So he definitely was part of the agenda and never had our best interest in mind at all. So
Yeah.
interesting in hindsight now. I would have not thought of that back in 2001 when the movie came out.
Oh man, back in 2000, that's the first person I ever wanted to vote for was GW,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
I was all psyched. I may have gotten arrested like the night before, and I thought I couldn't vote and didn't vote, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, like so, yeah. Talk about a hard pill to swallow about the Bushes. That was sure eye-opening. I think that's where I really realized, like, oh.
It was a hard pill to swallow. That was my first red pill, was being told that we took down our own towers, and that was as recently as 2015 for me. So I haven't been one of these people that's been like, "Oh yeah, I've known since it happened." I didn't know. I didn't believe it, and I didn't want to.
Dude, I put up skyscrapers in Manhattan and I didn't believe it for the longest time. And then, as I started getting like working more and building more and being like, man, what, these just collapsed? There's no way. Like, but I still didn't, it was still like cognitive dissonance. And then
Hmm.
I even have a video on my page from like 2011, a video that we did for one of my songs that we had done. And it's all about like kicking ass in the Middle East because of what they did, like
Right,
avenging the
right.
towers and stuff.
Well,
So
my parents still aren't on board, but the cool thing is that my mom actually is starting to realize all this stuff about the child sex trafficking stuff is real, what's going on with Hollywood and politicians. And she called me the other day and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Erin, this stuff is real. And you were right." And I was like, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," because those are like, that's music to my ears to hear my mom say that. And so I said to her, I go, "So now will you look at 9/11?" So she said, "I will." And I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to make her believe anything I'm not trying to push anything, but now that she's saying you were right all along, I thought, okay, well, just, take another look and see if I'm not right about that too.
yeah, yeah. It's funny, yeah. It's the same thing with me. Like once I doubled back on the towers, I was just like, oh, okay, this was the setup. It's like so much damning footage.
Um,
But
well, I don't know if you can click back, because before, I think this is the middle of the night where he's watching this. On the video, if you can click to where he's in his room there, it's when he calls his mom the B word,
oh yeah. He tells him you're
right before
bitching.
that.
Okay, yeah.
So in his room, you probably can't see it right now, but right next to him was an owl lamp. He's
Oh,
got an
okay.
owl. He's got the big one eye on the wall to his right that you can't see right now. He's got a
Uh,
pyramid bookshelf in there.
That's like the trifecta.
Yeah.
It's like a greatest hits album for
Yeah.
freaking, like
So that's
Illuminati.
all, that's all I wanted to point out was that he had an owl, he had a one eye, and he had basically a pyramidal shelving. And then, his mom says something interesting. She says, "I don't recognize this person today," almost as if like he's got a split personality or alters maybe.
And that's what they kind of try to do, right? They try to split the kid before he's like 6 or 7 years old. Okay.
Hmm.
All right, here we
There's
go.
the eye. Yeah, and then on his left, there's the pyramidal, bookshelf, and then his little owl. And that's all I noticed in there.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
the
even know what
owl.
book he's reading.
I hate that they screwed up owls. Owls are so cool. they
Well,
they screw up everything, man. I don't know.
interestingly, I think it comes from a Nephilim howling creature. So it's not really the owl. The owl has got nothing, is not an evil thing at all, but they use it to symbolize the howling Nephilim creature of old. And I don't have a lot of depth in that knowledge area, but
Right.
Gary Wayne, I've got his book behind me. He has a lot of knowledge about that and he's been teaching me. So one of these days I'll be able to tell more about it. But all I can say is I think that's what it's more pertained to. And so certainly own any owl fixture you want. People, I mean, I had an owl coin and people are like, "Oh, that's so satanic." I'm like, it's a picture of an owl on silver. Melt it if you don't like it. And if it's cursed, then all my silver is cursed, whether it's got an owl on it or not. So, so people kind of got to find a happy medium if you can. Don't go too far one way or the other.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like sometimes it's like people doing breakdowns on like regular people. I'm like, no, man, we don't know what these things mean. Like, like I'll see someone like, oh, and this guy had a cross and there's a swirl in the middle. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, like he don't know. Like that's just a freaking cross. I'm sure I don't think I own anything owl or anything with a swirl or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's just a million things with that stuff on it. So
Yeah, and of course there's certain handwriting, not handwritings, but calligraphy or whatever you'd call it, fonts and things that will have the swirls. And anyway, it doesn't always mean that. What it does mean is if you're trying to connect with somebody else in that arena, you're going to use that for some kind of conversation. But you and I just owning it, we're not trying to reach somebody and go, "Hey, you like owls? Are you into howling Nephilim spirits?"
yeah, like I feel like context is pretty important when trying to like
Mhm.
break it down. Like if someone's like on stage doing a freaking huge thing in front of a pyramid on the Grammys, with
Then
fire in the background,
yeah.
it's like,
With a big
yeah,
six and maybe an upside down six, and yeah, then you might go,
yeah,
when they're
that
doing
might mean
this.
something, right? If you're gonna go, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, they do it, and they, like you showed in your last video, which was great. You
Yeah.
show
Oh,
that
thank
they're doing specific things to an extent that we wouldn't do on purpose ever. Nobody walks around like this. Nobody walks around like this. And
you. Right, exactly. It feels so weird too. Like that's what I was like, oh, I gotta put that in the video because like I put my hand over my eye to feel.
I
I'm
did
like,
it
that's
too. I
not
was like, that
natural.
does. I know. I did it too. I was like, that doesn't. I'm like, that feels really weird. I had to do it too because I was thinking, I don't ever do it. I should see how that feels. And I'm like, yeah, it actually, you did such a great job. It occurred to me that is something we don't ever do. So why are they
Right.
always
Yeah,
doing
like
it?
no one like accidentally catches you in that pose, like, oh man, caught me off guard.
Like,
I was leaning on my hand. Like, that's weird. Like, I don't know.
caught you off guard. That's funny. So then what's next? What's on the next screenshot?
Okay, so
We got
all
the
right, so this is what I was
Oh
saying,
yeah,
like that was just how they were doing like the one eye going through everything anytime he was seeing something.
that's right. Yep, there's definitely a huge one eye thing going on here that will also have to do with Frank later. We'll see.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't even make that correlation, but you were right. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Okay, all right. I took this screenshot.
Yeah.
Big, the rock and roll.
Is it Led Zeppelin?
So that was this is the famous Swan Song Zeppelin poster. And I thought it was interesting that it's on the ceiling by the American flag. And this is from Evening, Fall of Day. And which is an old William Rimmer painting. And that's supposed to be like an allegory for Satan, I think, or
That's
Lucifer.
kind of what it looks like.
And I think right, like in an old interview, he had said it was Apollon or something, which apparently is some sort of people
Oh,
have used.
Abaddon and Apollyon.
Yeah, Apollyon. Apparently, like in an old interview, he had said it was for Apollyon. And then I found this, like, yeah, you understand this stuff more than me, but it was just seems to be like linked up with like Lucifer type stuff. So I thought that was interesting that this is like, Lucifer
Yes.
falling, and it's called the fall of man or the fall of day. I'm sorry. And he's at night, and this is where everything kicks off. This is where he's about to meet Frank and stuff. And it's right by the American flag. I know some people say like Lucifer is the god of this world. Is that a little nod there?
I also
But
think this is the first indication that he's dealing with a demon, which is interesting because we're going to
okay.
see and talk about that. There are a lot of people that think that this is showing that he suddenly has a no fear of death and a faith in God, but which God, I think, is what we need to ask,
Uh,
think about.
yes. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good question. Okay, so this was I thought was interesting, but this was
Yes.
the the engine of the plane. So, and when they zoomed in, it had like the little hypnotic swirl to it.
So for anyone who doesn't know, he is not home, and an engine from a jet airliner or airplane or something falls onto Donnie Darko's house, into his bedroom, onto his bed, and because he was sleepwalking or whatever, it didn't kill him. Or it would have killed him. And this is exactly right. It has a swirl, but this swirl looks less pedophilic to me, as it looks like something you'd see at a clown or a circus, on a clown or at a circus.
Right. Yeah, like more like hypnotic. Yeah, like
Yeah, or
clown,
that.
mesmerized type. All right. Yeah,
Right.
that's I was thinking the same thing too. And I forgot to take a screenshot, but when that happens, that's when he meets Frank.
For the first
Like,
time.
right, because he was away. Frank takes him to the golf course, and then that happens.
Yeah, Frank says, "Follow me," or something like that, and he's got a really creepy kind of voice that sounds like it's coming through, like kind of Darth Vader-y almost, like it's coming through a mask, which it is coming through a mask allegedly, but it doesn't sound like it'd be coming through that mask. It sounds like some kind of like, machine mask or something.
Right. I guess since maybe like coming from the tangent universe into the into the primary universe, kind of amplifying it type.
And
But
Frank's a bunny rabbit.
yes.
So there's Frank. We meet Frank for the first time at the golf course. That's because um, that's where he wakes up, and then he tells him, he gives him a time, right?
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, I should be looking at my notes actually.
28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. I did not
Right.
look into any kind of number thing with that. I didn't do numerology on it or anything. Did you do
Yeah,
anything
I
with
don't know. I just counted the days it took you to Halloween, so which makes sense.
Oh,
But
Halloween, of course. Geez,
yeah.
yeah.
So so
So so Frank says, that's when the world will end. And all that Donnie asks him is why.
right, and then it cuts. So I was wondering if he tells him, does Donnie know from here on in? I don't think he does. So I wonder if he's being if he's ambiguous with him. Because I don't it doesn't feel like Donnie knows what he's doing all the way through.
Right. I don't
Especially
think go ahead.
I was just saying, especially at this point in the movie, it doesn't seem like.
I think we're supposed to believe that he has no clue, but it's certainly the unknown that usually scares people.
Certainly is. Certainly does. This part, this was just me being a cranky old man, but freaking, like they tell her, oh, go back to China because every movie on
Yeah.
earth has to have a white guy being racist. Like has to have at least one scene. So that's the
Yep.
old, programming. But then I thought it was interesting that then it cuts to this and it says mongrels rule, which and everyone like jumps out of the bus and I just thought that was weird. Like, are we the mongrels?
What a weird name though for a mascot. We'll see that their statue is super creepy.
Yeah. Well, what's a mongrel is like, just like a person mixed in like, like a, I don't know, like an animal, I guess, or whatever. Like,
Mixed breeds, I guess,
are we animals to the god of this world? You know,
for
is that
sure.
what that's trying to say? And then it cuts right to them doing blow in front of a Satan sign.
Oh, I missed that. Good job. What would Satan do? Or something it says.
Yeah,
Jeez.
what would Satan do?
Good
Isn't
catch.
that like a famous saying? What would Jesus do?
Yes, that was for sure, especially like when I was younger, it was like the bracelets were on everybody.
Yeah.
So, and this time they're playing Time Flies by
Cheers for Fears.
Tears for Fears. Okay, so this is a song. Okay. So while they're doing the introduction, they're doing a lot of the speeding up and slowing down stuff in this part. And they're playing the song Time Flies, which is kind of interesting because time is stopped for him in a sense. We'll talk about later when we get into what the book talks about, but essentially his normal universe of time is stopped. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, yes. Kind of like, right, everything's kind of stopped as he's about trying to stop the tangent universe from collapsing into itself and taking out the primary universe and everything in a way. That's what it
Right.
seemed. I I thought that stuff was pretty interesting.
One thing I noticed in this movie a lot that I didn't see any chemtrails in the skies in this whole movie, and I was paying attention. There's like total blue skies in this movie, and we'll have to pay attention because maybe someday we'll come back just like they're doing in some of the older movies and like putting chemtrails in the skies with CGI
Yeah,
to
I
make
was
us think
reading
they've always
something
been
on
there.
that. Yeah, and just to give you like a false sense of, hey, this has always been around. Like, no, I kind of don't
Right.
think. How come no one noticed it when we were growing up? You know?
Right. Well, anyway, we'll go to the next one.
Okay, so I thought so. This was interesting. This is I don't know how much this reveals about anything, but about the plot of the movie, how she's reading the Destructors,
Hmm.
and how let's see, the Destructors, 54 short story, and it's kind of like what the movie becomes. How they burnt down this house, and it wasn't about money and stuff, and
Right. They just destroy, of course he tells what he thinks it is, which is very interesting that he'd have the best answer. That I don't remember what he said exactly, but he said just
they just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart.
that's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was great. Uh, right. They just want to see what happens when they tear the world apart. Some of this I felt like, the director was trying to make like an allegory for, the control, like, I don't know, the controllers, I guess, or whatever you could say, the gods of this world or the controllers, or just like we're animals and almost playing a this playing like a messed up version of Sim City with us, where you just like build a city and then release a tornado on it or something. I don't know. So just
Well,
let my
that's a
mind
good
wander.
point because they're manipulating the living and the dead in this book. So this is where we'll get introduced to this girl. Her name, hold on, I've got it.
Oh yeah.
Gretchen. Gretchen comes in to this classroom with Drew Barrymore, and she says that she was registered for the wrong class, but for some reason she comes in anyway. And she goes, "Well, you look like you belong here," which is again manipulated living, manipulated dead. So what that means, and we might as well get into it now. There's a book that he is given later in the movie, and it has its own story. It's been written up, and you have to go to a special website to read it, or you can just go to the spoilers of other articles that people have written up and find out what it says. But the book talks about how he's in, remind me there what the regular universe is called and what universe he's in right now.
All right, the primary universe, and right now he's in the tangent universe. They say that once there was once the extra engine was like a glitch in the universe, so that created a tangent universe.
Yeah, so so the engine that falls on his house was a glitch, I guess, in the matrix, so to speak, and it creates suddenly a parallel universe, and it must stop the other one just right there where it was, because he's got to fix the problem or end the regular universe. And because it has to be fixed, he's got people who are pushing him towards his goal, and that will be the manipulated living and the manipulated dead. And the manipulated dead have more access to pushing him towards that goal because they have transcended from the other side. Very interesting.
Yeah, no, I thought those were cool too. Are those in your movie? I watched the extended version, and they actually show screenshots of a lot of that stuff.
So I don't think I watched the extended version.
Ah, you know what? Because I felt like I understood it so much more this time, like maybe that's why. So maybe in the extended version, he made a point to go through it. Because once he gives him the book, it goes through some of those exactly what you were just talking about, which was pretty fascinating and cool, I thought.
Yeah, so the reason I chose not to do the extended version was really because of the director's own words. That he
Okay.
said that he really didn't want to call it an extended version, but more of an alternative version, because he felt that the original movie had enough of that information in there, which of course it didn't. I would have never guessed what was going on.
Yeah.
But that's okay because other people have done a lot of work to kind of figure that out and to come up with ideas that I don't have that. I'm kind of a literal person, and so I get excited reading other people's take on these things. So
Yeah.
instead of me just watching the alternative version give me all the answers, I just watched this one and then I read what people had to say. Then I went to the website that shows the book. I clicked through it. I finally figured it out. It took me a while because it's really old and it's archived. It's not even an actual running website anymore. And so I got to play around with that and read part of the book that myself, you could
Ah,
actually
that's
click through
cool.
and read the book. And so we'll get to some of what that book says because you sounds like you watched the longer one, but it would leave a lot of questions not knowing that these people are pushing him towards his goal, but the teacher saying you look like you belong here is helping that person to help Donnie towards his goal. She comes into the wrong, she was put registered for the wrong room, so she comes in there anyway and she says you look like you belong here, have a seat, and gets her to say pick the cutest guy, knowing that she would pick D0NNLE-DARK0 because they're both have a goal of pushing him towards his goal.
That makes a lot of sense. It's funny when she first said that. I first watched that scene. I thought she was being a little catty.
Right.
Like what an awkward, horrible thing to
Yeah.
do someone on their
Right.
first like minute in that school. But yeah, pushing him towards that goal, right? And when she says cellar door later on too.
Yep, that'll be part of it too. Okay, what do we have next?
Okay. Okay, so then I just took a screenshot. This is the first time she met Roberta Sparrow, and she whispers in his ear, and so that was interesting. Just a little foreshadowing, something that didn't make sense at the time, but
Yeah, we didn't know what she said at first when I watched the. You don't know what she says, but I think she says we all die alone or something like that,
yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
which
Everyone.
is which is odd. But I'll get into that later. I think it's odd that she would say that. When wait, okay, there is. Let me make sure I know where I'm at in my spot. Okay, I don't think we're there yet. So they almost hit this lady. Roberta Sparrow is an old lady that everyone knows about, and she wanders and looks in her mailbox constantly. Although I'm not sure I ever know why she's checking her mailbox all the time.
Well, I figured because she's seen the future. Like it seems like she's had a
Mm,
lifetime of manipulating the future, um, and maybe has seen glimpses somehow. I don't know how you'd explain it, but the whole, one of the things at the end is that he does send her a letter and stuff, and
yep,
maybe I feel
he
like maybe
does.
she's checking for that letter in a
That
weird
that
way.
that makes sense. All right, so there's Roberta Sparrow. Turns out she's kind of doesn't know who she is or where she is, but she's going to be more a part of the story soon.
Indeed. Now I thought this
Oh,
was,
I love this lady.
yeah, oh man, this like, this is a perfect example of every movie they try to make like the Christians seem like well,
Yes.
half whack jobs. Like, all right,
Yes.
enough with that. But
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that at one point in the things that she's showing, the person says, I looked through the mirror. I looked through the mirror and saw my evolution. Just thinking,
Yep.
like maybe that was like a little Alice in Wonderland nod through the looking glass.
There's
To it.
also the scrying mirror, which is the mirror like mirror, mirror on the wall.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I
Yeah.
wrote down looking glass and scrying mirror and seeing the future because that I think makes a lot of sense because they're always talking about look in the mirror, look in the mirror, look in the mirror. Like even this Christian lady later says to his Donnie Darko's mom that she needs to go home and take a look in the mirror. And
Oh
Donnie
yeah.
Darko is
Yeah. When
often
she's
looking
like
in the mirror.
lecturing her and stuff.
Yeah. And then
Right.
this guy, which is Patrick Swayze, is
Yeah.
tell is they're always his testimonials, the people their testimonials are always saying, I just looked in the mirror and said, blah, blah, you know?
Right. And it's all about, it's all about fear and,
Yep.
fear and like looking through the looking glass and stuff. But thought that was interesting that she's showing this because how do they control people with love and fear?
Yes.
Love, they've kind of like messed up into anything they want to push. They just throw the word love in there. Oh, we're going to win with love. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
cut to like Antifa bashing people in the head with bike locks, you might want to think you're a little ad campaign there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything. And then fear is obviously they keep us all like terrified at all times at everything. That's
I thought I had taken a note about this guy's name, but dang it, Jim Cunningham is his name.
okay.
JC, I thought that was interesting. Like almost like an
Ah,
Antichrist nod,
it is
because
definitely. Oh
Donnie
yeah.
calls him the Antichrist later.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you took a screenshot of that. That was weird.
It's funny. I have a screenshot of this, but really no time. So take it
So
away.
I'll go ahead. The unicorn, possibly a creature in the past during times of Nephilim creation, that we know the animals were corrupt too, and that's why Noah had to take certain animals on the ark.
Okay.
And also, it's a point to magic, I think, hermetic magic or hermetic alchemy. And that's really all I would say about that. It's just something I wanted to mention, that she's writing this little unicorn story. And even the last unicorn, that could, in the last unicorn, the movie, when I was a kid, there's a story about that. And she's the last unicorn and she has to defeat the Red Bull. And it's a good versus evil type of new age
Oh,
story. And I was like, oh, the last unicorn, kind of a savior, but for who and against what? It's
right.
just something I kind of thought about as a parallel of a similar story.
It's funny, with a lot of the ancient stuff, I feel like, some of these things, they're from thousands of years ago or like several hundred years ago. And we're trying to like find these things, but I feel like they've muddied the waters. I mean, there's like centuries of people trying to twist narratives that, sometimes I feel like, man, are some of these things actually good or some of these things that seem good actually bad? Like, it's almost like sometimes I try to hold on to something and I'm like, well, it was 2,000 years ago and people have been throwing this through the grinder, 100 times over, from like, or, it'd be like stuff from like talking about like the Etruscans and stuff before Rome. And, I used to get into all that stuff and I'm like, well, how do I know this is the real story? Or like, I don't know, stuff like that.
No, I agree, and it's more fun when I've started to meet people. Like, again, I'm gonna throw a shout out to Gary Wayne, because he is really good when it comes to understanding Genesis creation and a lot of the Nephilim stuff, and he always goes back to scripture, and if it doesn't align with scripture, he throws it out. If it's not
Okay.
going to, if it's some kind of historical research or Bible prophecy that he's researching, he will always go back to scripture. And if he can't get it to align there, then it's not going to be a part of his research. I mean, he might talk about it. There's parallels, because that's why. So some people like him will they'll look at Gnostic writings, or even like things like the Book of Gilgamesh, just because he's going to point out the parallels that you'll see to the Bible scripture, but not saying, oh, the Book of Gilgamesh is good reading, go and read it. But what he's doing is he's saying, look at these other writings and let's compare it to the scripture. And if we can make it make sense, because the scripture shows that too, which I think he has done. So
That's
like
a
what we
cool
said,
approach. Yeah.
it's a great approach, and it makes sense when I listen to him. But that way, you might not be wondering if this is accurate or not. You might be saying, well, it aligns with scripture and they wrote about it and they wrote about it. And just because some of it's Gnostic writing doesn't mean it's all a lie. We know that there's 99 small truths to sell one big lie. And some of the people that wrote in the Gnostic writings just didn't know the truth themselves. They're always being deceived by Satan. Only Satan knows what, he'll never tell them the whole truth. So my point
Yeah.
being, not every Gnostic literature or every Roman literature or Greek literature or anything is anything to throw out. It's certainly something to compare and contrast to biblical scripture. And if you can make that story make sense according to scripture, then you can say that probably happened a lot the way they said it did. But here's what it really is. It's not an actual God, the way that people have told the stories, but a half human, half angel creature that was probably terrifying because it was large and they were mean, like they were corrupt. They would eat humans, you know, they would have
That's not very
incest.
nice.
They would have those, but you see those old artist depictions and things like that, and it makes sense when you say, okay, these creatures were so corrupt and bad because they were from evil, and it was corrupted mankind, but it was an actual hybrid. So it makes more sense that maybe even centaurs existed and unicorns existed and the
Oh,
cyclops existed, and you
oh,
know what I'm
definitely.
saying?
You look at all those ancient like hieroglyphs and stuff. They have all different types of like animal, men, splices. Like who knows?
Right.
Maybe they could have been experimenting. I don't know.
I
I
think
like
so.
to let my head go in a million different directions with that stuff. But oh, but speaking of like the Giants, did you see that picture that I don't know if it's on the White House Twitter or something? Let me where it's got a giant.
Yeah,
Oh,
pull it up because I'm obviously not able to get onto my Twitter account anymore.
she friggin'. Well, at least this time it wasn't so
Yeah, I didn't do
salacious.
anything. I just, so if anyone cares, not that not many people follow me on Twitter, but I can't get into my Twitter account simply because I think my VPN kicked it off to think I'm a robot, which happened on a couple different things, not just Twitter. So that's why I think it's the VPN. So my VPN will have a roaming ISP or whatever address. And so it thought I was a robot and it says, okay, well, now that you clicked the robot thing and you're not a robot, we need you to get a code from your phone. Well, I bought the phone number because I've had so many accounts. Anyway, I bought a phone number to use for a new account and it was like a one-time use. I can't get any text messages from that phone number. So anyway, I just can't get in for that reason. I don't really think it was anything I did.
Yeah, well, at least there's a better reason. That still sucks though. But look here, look at the White House, right? This is the picture they just changed the other day. Look at this dude.
Oh, wow.
And look, and everyone's taking pictures of him. Sorry, I mean, he's twice as tall as his
Oh,
people. And
that's a
people are
trip.
saying like, oh, maybe he's more in the foreground, but maybe he's more in the
Mm-mm.
foreground, but no, kind of not. If you look at the
Let's look at his
first,
feet. Yeah,
yeah,
he's
like
he's
you
not.
could see the ground. It's the same
Wow,
distance ground, and they're all taking pictures of him. And there's
that's a
the man,
trip.
the myth, the legend, right there. So anyway, you just mentioned Nephilim. That made me
No, I
just
think
think
that's
of this.
great. That's so cool. I mean, I wonder, and I haven't seen anything about it or heard anything about it. Would you mind, like, if you would screenshot that and just send it over to me on something, whatever you can, whatever,
Okay, yeah,
Facebook or
yeah.
Instagram or something, just because I think I'd like to look at it. That's cool. All right. So after the last unicorn,
Oh,
oh, they're walking
this I
home.
just thought was cool.
Let's comment on this part. You tell me what she says.
She says you're weird, and he kind of like gets a little sulking, and then she goes, that was a compliment. So I just
Yeah.
thought that was cool. Like to me, that is a compliment. So I don't know. That has nothing to do with any breakdown. I just thought that was a cool.
No, you know why this is one of the best parts in the movie?
Uh,
So I completely agree with you. So when I was chaperoning at a basketball game for one of my kids' school class, I just had to sit there with the kids at the basketball game. One of the little girls looks at me and she goes, "My dad is the weirdest person in our family." And I said, "Well, you know what? That means he's really smart." And she's like it blew her mind. You
That's
could tell
cool.
she was rethinking probably her mom because they're divorced. Probably her mom had been talking about how weird her dad is or something for years. And it looked like
Yeah.
the girl was just rethinking every instance of when her mom had said he was weird and going, whoa, wait a minute. And I go, I'm the weirdest person in my family. And and so I've been telling the kids, my kids, that you're weird. And I'm like, but it means you're smart. And so they say it to me too. And so, but then they kind of didn't believe me. So one of them, she'll say, "You're weird, weird," when she means to say that I'm weird, not smart. And
Right.
so she happened to be watching this with me because it's really not that terrifying of a movie. Plus, my kids know symbolism as much as me, which drives them nuts, to be honest. Because I'm teaching, because I show it to them in their own cartoons and stuff. But anyway, she's watching this part with me, and thought that was so great because I said, "See, did you hear that? Confirmation that weird is a good thing." It was
That's
perfect.
that
I
is
enjoyed it.
perfect. All right. Well, I'm glad I saved that then.
Me
But
too. A
yeah.
little bit about Gretchen is she's got this mom and her who had to move away and run from a stepdad who stabbed her mom in the chest.
Good times, good times. Yeah.
I was like, that stinks.
That is certainly pretty crappy circumstances to have to move away. But yeah. So this is when he tells that poem, which I thought was so cool, where he says a storm is coming, a storm that will swallow the children, and I will deliver them from the kingdom of pain. I will deliver the children back to their doorsteps and send the monsters back to the underground. I'll send them back to a place where no one else can see them except for me, because I'm D0NNE-DARK0. Which
Wow.
is like foreshadowing, well, to what he does to Patrick Swayze. Was it Jim Cunningham's
Right.
character in a way, but also just in general, like the demons. I mean, obviously they have this obsession with children and being, horrible with that stuff. So I thought that was cool.
And in a sense, he's a child himself. He's only supposed to be probably a 16-year-old or so, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He can't be more than a junior for sure. So I thought that
Yeah.
was.
Okay. So that must be part of the extended version.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. I should have
That's
watched
okay.
them both, to be honest. I didn't even think of that.
Okay. So when he's walking Gretchen home, what we learned is that somebody broke into the school and, oh yeah, that was a weird image of his dream. So Frank tells him to wake up, and it's kind of like a dream. Like he goes to the basement of the school and breaks the water main, but it's obviously he must have actually done it in real life because, oh, okay. Yeah, you'll
Here's
want to
the
find that
water.
spot where the axe is inside the mascot's head, maybe the bronze statue.
Yes, I think that. Yeah, I think that comes up pretty much right after this.
There's the bunny. Also, I feel like Frank the bunny has kind of not Moloch, but more like Baphomet type ears in a way. He's so very creepy costume.
Yes. Oh man, it's definitely. You don't want to watch this before you go to bed. That's for sure.
And to think, they do this a lot, or they not a lot. They've done this before, where what was that movie? Scream, where there's some just creepy Halloween mask that like never has existed in real life.
Right. Well, that scream mask is from that famous painting, The Scream.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't think
Okay,
it was. Yeah, I don't think it was like a regular Halloween mask or anything until that movie. But
right.
I think this is where they show the mongrels.
Yep. Yeah. Also, Charita doesn't sound like a Chinese name, but I guess maybe she's Chinese somehow. There it is. The creepy mongrel with the big axe stuck in his head. So somehow he gets superpowers too, and that's an interesting thing that it probably mentions in the book. Maybe that they're able to reach into some kind of extra powers, but it talks definitely about water, fire, and other things that he can tap into or something.
Yes, I think it was saying one of the screenshots I had. I think it was saying that the manipulated living. Oh no, the living receiver is kind of gifted some powers in the tangent universe while this is all going on.
Right.
And
Oh my gosh. Go ahead.
I think that's how he was able to, at the end, guide. At the end, he was using what he said to time travel. You need water and metal. He had a car.
Yeah,
There was a
that's right.
storm, and then I feel like he was able to use some sort of telekinesis to guide that engine. You see the engine ripping through the sky, and he sort of guides it into the rift, and then sort of seems to go through it himself. Where then he
Yeah.
wakes up and allows himself to be killed. Which is another point of contention I have in movies, that there always seems to be the noble sacrifice. I feel like they always try to push that. Oh, if you kill yourself for the good, that's a good thing. It's like, well, no. Well, now you're out of the game. Hey, you can't do any more good then. I don't know.
Yeah. And it had me, I was emotional about that. I was tearing up at the end of this movie.
Yeah, like, if you know what's going to happen, just avoid it and then make sure these things don't happen. What do you mean? Like, you don't need to die.
He didn't have to die, but I think we'll get to that. But he, for whatever reason, chose to. So, yeah, so now that this is the video, the Jim Cunningham, Patrick Swayze video says to do this exercise on fear and love.
Right, and the fear and love scale. And again, it's like, this is what they pull us in between at all times. They just freaking rip us in every direction using these two real, these two real things, which kind of comes from the Edward Bernays, how you could use people's fear and or, he says like sex. You can control people with sex or fear, their like instinct to want to protect themselves or protect their family. So I just thought that was interesting. This is like a major control system thing right here, which is our society is pretty much set up on right now.
I think is a great point. And it didn't seem incredibly childish, this exercise too. I couldn't believe just how severely childish an exercise like this would be. I couldn't get it through my head. Like, why on earth would they put high school students in a position of doing the most childish possible? And I guess there's something to that. Like the Christian woman thinks these kids are idiots and couldn't possibly handle anything more than something like this. But it's just so they have to come up and read a scenario and then determine where on the scale, which how would you even determine that? Because it seemed like they were really bad decisions or really good decisions. I mean, how do you decide? Well, it's somewhere in the middle of fear and love. Super weird exercise. And the pictures of the kids on there were super weird too, because there was one that had like a Mexican name, but like these two buck teeth and like curly hair it just didn't look anything like the name. And I was like, is this just some kind of racist nod that the Hollywood foreign press is extremely racist? And I just wouldn't be surprised if they're just throwing in some like racist stuff in there. Who knows?
Oh man, I wouldn't be surprised either. But you know what that reminds me of? Not to go off topic. You ever watch A Most Extreme Elimination Challenge?
No.
It was like a show we used to watch in the 90s where it was literally like these things, like these Japanese business people used to go to these camps where they would run through these courses. It was all water. It was like a cool obstacle course. They would have like fake commentary. And I remember one guy, they're all Japanese. I remember one guy comes up and they're like, Seamus O'Malley, Irish carpenter out of Skokie, Illinois. And,
Right.
the guy just like wails out on a friggin' thing. I don't know. Anyway, that's what you just brought me up with that.
It's a name that would probably just be totally, I get what you're saying. I thought this was interesting because I didn't think the name went along with the image at all, but who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely psychological. Here you go. Here's the book.
And there's the book. So this is his chemistry teacher, science teacher of some kind. I can't remember.
Right, I believe so. Yeah. Chemistry, I believe.
He gives him The Philosophy of Time Travel, written by Roberta Sparrow, which is none other than...
Oh, Roberta Sparrow is the lady with the white hair.
That they almost ran down in the street. And so you watching I pulled up articles about this and you watched the extra one. In the extra movie, do they read from this book or talk about this book in an extended amount or not?
Well, they start to. They leads a lot of scenes in with stuff like this, where it's saying, like, and it says ingredients where it says incidents when the fabric of the fourth dimension becomes corrupted are incredibly rare. If a tangent universe occurs, it will be highly unstable, sustaining life for no longer than several weeks. Eventually, it will collapse upon itself, forming a black hole within the primary universe capable of destroying all existence. So that's kind of like seems to be the crux of the movie.
Right.
That he has to solve this rift in the primary universe where there's this copy of this plane engine that came out of nowhere, which doesn't belong there, which created the tangent universe, which is now highly unstable and about to collapse until he can play this all out and figure out a way to fix it.
And that's his mission. He's actually got a mission to do these things. And that's where it talks. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's where it comes in with the manipulated living, which are people who don't die in either universe, and they will push him towards his goal. And then the manipulated dead are people who die in this tangent universe, but they live in the primary universe, but they've got some kind of extra push and pull because they die in this universe. Like they've crossed over. So now they've got some kind of fourth dimensional construct or something where they can work with, that's where they can work with these people a little bit more than the living manipulators. If that, it makes sense to me. I hope I'm making it make sense.
No, exactly. Like how Frank the Bunny Rabbit was ripped out of the primary universe and sent back, or was ripped out of the primary universe and sent to this tangent universe, even though he's dead, to in his bunny costume to try and guide Donnie towards this goal to fix everything.
Right, and that's the time travel aspect, and that's good that you bring that up because there's definitely a time travel aspect to that that we'll see with who Frank when we finally realize who Frank is.
Right. Exactly. Now this, okay. So this is like an 80s like metal band, Triumph.
Oh, it's
And
also a motorcycle. So I didn't even catch that about being a band because there is a Triumph motorcycle too. But go ahead with the band aspect of it.
okay, well I'm pretty sure this logo is the band,
Oh, it could be because they might have gotten that from the motorcycle itself.
and this is one of their albums. So this is the motorcycle company logo. So that kind of flat tires everything I was gonna say.
No, because don't you think that I think things have double meanings, and I'm curious
Well,
to hear about this band.
well, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that Triumph is an '80s band in '88. And this movie being in '88, but
Right?
I thought that was interesting because one of their probably most popular songs, Magic Power, and
Oh,
talking
there you
about
go.
the
See, that
crystal.
totally corresponds.
Yeah, I thought it felt like it definitely corresponded. And I thought this is interesting. You're thinking it over, but you just can't sort it out. Do you want someone to tell you what they think it's all about? And he's sitting in therapy when he's wearing
Yeah,
that shirt. So,
that makes sense.
which I guess a lot of people go there, they want the therapist. I guess the therapist a lot of times supposed to bring it out of them, but really a lot of people go to therapy because they just want someone to tell them freaking to break down their life, tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, they want them to kind of fix the problem, and I actually liked this character therapist
Yeah,
because
too.
I was like, man, like this was written well because I like how she talks to him and asks him questions because it seems like she'd be a good therapist in real life. I don't know. I don't know how you thought about that.
Yeah, no, I feel like she would too. Um, I definitely like the aspect here. I've never gone to therapy, but I like the idea of it. I have a close friend who's a therapist, and she seems pretty with it and is very smart. So
My concern with therapy is the lack of bringing God into it because that could just
right,
help so many people. But that the people in my community would agree with that, but it's hard to say. And you have a big community, but we are very much a Christian based community with my YouTube and my Discord and stuff. And so that's what I think. I'm like, if we could just bring God into this, it'd probably help a lot. But interestingly, they do bring God into this because he talks about being afraid to die alone. And she doesn't push any idea of God, but he's saying that he doesn't believe and he doesn't even argue with people about it anymore, and that it's just probably not real. And so there is an aspect to God in this movie, but again, I'm saying which God because again, there's another superhero nod back. I'm going back, but when Gretchen was walking with him and she says, "What kind of name is D0NNe-DARK0?" It sounds like some kind of superhero name. And he says, "What makes you think I'm not?" So and you look at Frank is not an angelic creature. He's not like a nice looking. I'm
yeah,
not. Although when
he's
people saw
demonic.
angels of the yeah, when people saw angels of the Lord, they feared them, but I don't think they look like a demonic bunny rabbit. So I get the take that we're dealing with. I think in Hollywood industries, of course, it doesn't surprise us that we're looking at a Luciferian aspect of who God is, and if people don't realize that in that duality, that dualism of Luciferian, they believe God, our God, is evil and has imprisoned us on earth, and Lucifer has the truth. So in that way, it's not evil to them. So I just want to
Right,
mention
which
that.
is weird to me because, well, if that's the truth, then why does he push so much awful stuff? Like everything tied to like, oh, we're Luciferians and we're being free is tied to them like just pushing all out sex everywhere and all out destruction and oh, do as thou wilt. YOLO, you only live once, which basically means just reap destruction and who cares, It's like no consequences, no conscience, It's like the exact opposite of what a benevolent liberator would be. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's my point of contention with that little description that they have there. Like, oh, Lucifer is the good one freeing us by what? Creating chaos and having everyone, you know, be turned into jerks.
This is one of the best parts of the movie. I wonder if we can show that part of where she says, he goes, now what exactly did you say to her? And she's standing there and she goes, I'll tell you what he said.
When they're in the counter,
Yeah,
right?
when they're in the, yeah, right here.
Okay, yeah.
Anything else? If you don't complete the assignment, you'll get a 0 for the day.
Donald, let me preface this by saying that your Iowa test scores are intimidating. So let's go over this again. What exactly did you say to Ms. Farmer?
I'll tell you what he said. He asked me to forcibly insert the lifeline exercise card into my anus.
I love how his dad laughs.
I love the dad in this movie.
They come out of that, and this is where Kitty, which is Kitty Farmer, the teacher, talks to Donnie's mom and says, you need to go home and look in the mirror. And there's another mirror, you know, situation. And that's really all about that part. I'd probably, unless there's something else you want to say about it. Again, like you said, they make the Christian person look like kind of a whack job and not with it and really old fashioned. They make her look like
Right,
just kind
exactly.
of old fashioned loser.
Yeah, they always have to, you know, maybe it's a little more subtle in this than some movies are over the top. But of course, you know, like one thing, it's like the teachers lecturing the mom, but they don't discipline their kids. So it's like the teacher's kind of right in this
right.
point, you know.
I agree.
But,
I would have said the same thing, that she's exactly right about her concern. Right after that, you know, there's that kid that he keeps getting into trouble with that is like what's his name? Oh my gosh, what's his name? Let me go to IMDb. There's an actor on here, and it's his first ever movie and his first ever line.
oh, that's cool.
Seth Rogen.
Oh, Seth Rogen.
So
Yes.
Seth Rogen and his buddy, who's named Seth not Seth Rogen is named Seth, but his buddy, who's what do you call it? A bully. It's Seth Rogen and his little buddy, who's named Seth in the movie, pick on Donnie Darko all the time. And of course, he finds him in a bathroom, and Donnie Darko is again staring in the mirror, and he says, "Did you tell them it was me or whatever?" And it's kind of interesting little part. Not important, but again, looking in the mirror, and then he gets that book, and he goes sees Roberta Sparrow was actually a teacher in the school too. By the way, she was a teacher in the school. And then right after he gets in trouble at school, well, hold on, he goes back to his counselor, and this is where he gets hypnotized. And when she decides to hypnotize him, which to me is a dangerous thing. I don't agree with hypnotizing people, but he starts having all these weird sexual fantasies that he's talking about. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah, and he's starting to like pull his pants down or whatever, and she wakes him up.
Which is why I was going to say it was interesting that you were mentioning that, because that's all I was going to say about that, is that he starts, that for some reason they throw in these sexual fantasies that he's having, and I think it speaks only to what you were just saying, that's part of, you know, they're not disciplined, they're rebellious kids, and he's got these massive sexual fantasies. They're talking about this everyone's talking about this Jim Cunningham guy and all of this great love and fear books or videos that he's doing. Okay, so then I think we are at the point that you are. He's sitting at home in the chair, and explain the picture that you have there of his dad at the refrigerator.
Right, so it seems like he's starting to be, I feel like Donnie Darko can see this, or even if he can't, it's kind of just showing, like, I guess this is like a fate thing, how being manipulated, being led. So I guess this is a product of the tangent universe with the manipulated living, whether they know it or not. But I thought this was interesting that I can't play it here. But while the father's being led to this in the living room, who's the boss promo is playing. So, which is one of, like obviously TV's like a control system, but who's the boss? Are you the boss? Who's leading? You're being led to get another beer. What controls you? Does drinking control you? Does TV control you? Obviously, this is something leading him there, being manipulated. I just thought that was a cool little dynamic there.
That's exactly right, because just like in the song by Echo and the Bunnymen, which is also their name is Echo and the Bunnymen, but that song Killing Moon, he says fate up against your will. So again, what kind of control do you have? And he describes this thing that comes out as like a controller, like you just said. It's like something that leads them, and they don't even know the thing is moving out of him before he even says, I'm going to go get a beer. Almost like, did that thing tell him, go get a beer? Yeah, kind of like what you just said.
Right, yeah, exactly. And like these things are we being led by our own thoughts, or are we letting these outside influences, kind of mold our thoughts and mold our actions?
Right, and so then he's led with his into his father's bedroom where he finds a gun, which is important later.
Which I don't have a screenshot of, but yes, he's then led to find the gun. And then this comes up. It says water and metal are the key elements of time travel, which is important at the end where he's in the car by the storm.
Mm-hmm.
But said water is the barrier element for the construction of time portals, uses gateways between universes and tangent vortex. So I like, me, I love that. I geek out on stuff like this. But
well, I find it very interesting too that it's got rules. That how would you even know the rules? Thank goodness Roberta Sparrow has been through it, even though it seriously affected her, and she didn't die. So what we know is that the what do they call it? What is he called?
The manipulated living?
No, he's called.
Oh, he's called
the living receiver.
The living receiver, right?
So the living receiver doesn't have to die because she didn't, and it's interesting that she says we all die alone, because she obviously discovered, maybe by living through it, she discovered something very different than him. His discovery is there is something bigger than himself, and he's doing something. It could, if you wanted to, you could skew this in a Christian way, because he is realizing that he has a job that's much bigger than himself, and that's to save humanity. And he's no longer afraid of death because he believes that there's a controller or a creator or something. There is, right? He's now seen it. He's now seen it controlling them, and he now realizes that I have a job to do, and it's bigger than me, and that's when the fear stops. So for some reason, she still feels like you die alone, but he has seen this differently.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Wow, I didn't even think of that. How they're both kind of given two glimpses of everything, and where she's the and then with him being the living receiver, kind of got to see the full picture, and then with her being the manipulated living, maybe not seeing the whole picture, but she's seen enough where it's pretty much fried her out, and now she's trying to just live into this moment where she gets that letter, and every day she doesn't know which day it's going to happen. She's kind of living for that,
And remember, she left her religious faith to do science.
Right. And that's where, don't get me started on that. I feel like there's such a concerted effort to make anyone who likes science do away with God, and that anyone who loves God do away with science. And it's just like, I feel like they just corral people into these groups, like, oh, one or the other. Like, well, no, man. Like, why can't like science and God? Like, I must have imagined the 90s then, where like, I don't know. It's just weird. I feel like they get people to corral them into groups. No, it's one or the other. Well, if you like God, well, that's an assault on science. Or you like science, that's an assault on God. You guys got to fight about it now. You guys fight. Like, I don't understand why some of these things, and it's not just with that, but there's so many other things where it just has to be one or the other. Like, what about, some of these things are way more complicated than that, you know.
I think
But
it leads to the
yeah.
Hegelian dialect of needing us to oppose each
Yeah,
other,
without a
needing
doubt,
the two sides, needing the fight and the battle.
you can't manipulate people without having them be opposed to something, taking something out of the equation. But this goes to what you're saying. The manipulated living will do anything to save themselves from oblivion. So she says, "Oh, you die alone." To her, death is oblivion. She's trying to save herself from that. So I think that's interesting. You brought that
Oh,
up.
cool. See, this is fun. This is why I like doing stuff together. And when I'm doing it alone, you just don't catch as much. You
Yeah, that's
never will.
100%. This is a cool part. I guess I think I started taking less screenshots as I was going along.
That's
But this is the
understandable.
whole thing where he calls him the Antichrist and gives that
That's
speech and everything. That was so great.
exactly right. That's exactly the spot where he says that. And that's all I wrote, but he did. He stood up and he kind of made the guy feel funny. He says, "How much you getting paid? How much you getting paid for this?" And he's like, what?" And obviously he's a sleazeball. I mean, they make him look sleazy. They make him look greasy. And
Right.
you just don't like him. He's not likable. And I'm going to mention a part that it doesn't really matter. I don't need you to find it. But just because I like to check off any kind of Illuminati stuff that I see,
Oh, yeah.
there's a part where he's stressed out and maybe we're not even, it's right after this. So you probably don't have a screenshot. He gets mad at this guy and he leaves and he's with his girlfriend, Gretchen, and he's shooting bottles. And so I was, thinking of shattering glass with the shooting of the bottles. So the shattered thing, the altars type of deal. And then there was a checkerboard flag. So the dualism, the black and white, just like a checkerboard floor. But anyway, that's all. It was just me noticing shattered glass and checkerboard at the same time. So usually if it was independent of if they were independent of each other, I probably wouldn't have taken anything from it. But, just another nod to possibly altars. So here's another thought.
Yeah, so how does that work again with the shattering of that's like MK Ultra type deals,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. So just to be annoying, consider this. Consider that the alternate universe is really in his head because he could be having altered personalities and he could be living multiple lives in that way because that's what alters will do. They'll be like split personalities, like they call dissociative identity disorder or DID, which has also been called multiple personality disorder in the past. And they purposely it's done to it's MK Ultra is or Monarch mind control. It's a trauma-based mind control to where they will abuse you physically, sexually, in any way possible. And it causes you to dissociate out of that situation and create alters. And some of these alters they're just other people with other names. They could be other ages. They could be other sexes. If you really want to see something like that, watch the movie Split by M. Night Shyamalan, because the first movie was Unbreakable. It's actually
I love that movie, Unbreakable.
Great, because you're going to like Split too, because Glass is the third installment of that series. And I just watched Split again because I was watching with a friend who hadn't seen it, and I had seen Unbreakable. I loved that movie back in the day.
Hold on a second. There's a sequel to Unbreakable?
And a third one.
That's what Split is?
Split is number 2, and you don't know that till you get to the very end of it.
Wow. All right. I'm a big comic book fan. So when that movie came out, it was like a real life comic book. I was like, whoa, that's such a cool idea for a movie. But I haven't seen it in like 15 years, but
you remember it, and that's exactly right. It was comic book characters in real life. And so then you're going to want to watch Split, and then the third installment would be Glass. And I don't think there's going to be any more because M. Night says he's never even done anything like that. He's like, I'm not trying to make a whole bunch of movies on this, but you're just going to have to imagine where it would go from there. But anyway, it's a fragmented multiple personalities is what that is. And they'll depict it in movies and in videos or music videos or with shattered glass. Like whether somebody's face is pushed up against it or whether they fall, like remember Heather fell into the glass table.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So just things like that, shattered glass. And like I said, I wouldn't have thought anything of it except for he had a checkerboard flag right next to where he was shooting. And we know that the black and white checkerboard floors and it is right here, right where she is, where he's sitting with her. I think it's right before that. Or maybe it's when he's shooting.
It's another scene with him. It's another scene with him and his buddies where he's shooting it. But it's here though. Yeah, you're right. I forget where though, but yeah.
Anyway, you don't need to find it. The point is it could be, so just to totally drive people nuts, is maybe he just has alternate personalities and it's not really a time travel alternate universe thing and he's saving the world. But anyway, it's just something to throw out. And I think they point to it a little bit by having that, by having him take a medication that can, we don't know what his real problem is. He's having hallucinations. He also, the shattered glass, and, there's just little things here and there that could point to him having multiple personalities or dissociative identity disorder.
Right.
And that's it.
No, I like that. Yeah. It was shattered with a shattered mind. And this is all somewhere inside it,
Right.
Or maybe this is what his spirit saw after he died from the engine or something, or any number of things. I like that. Yeah.
And to really get annoying, he points to saving the children, right? Who does this happen to with MK Ultra? It's always children. You got to start with them when they're young. And
Right.
then what else do we have? We have Jen Cunningham, who turns out to be a child abuser, which is an actual dungeon where he abuses children.
Right. It's funny watching like all these little things, like now that all this is being so exposed, and you start
Right.
seeing all these little hints, all these little nods to all this stuff that, who would ever have thought twice about? Now you see it and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it's helped because they've unclassified the MK Ultra studies and people coming out like Fritz Springmeier writing the books on the bloodlines. I think in 2001 we wouldn't have had a clue about half of this stuff.
Right. The book on the bloodlines, that was like a CIA doc or something like that, right? That was on.
It was released on a CIA doc, but it was a book by a man called Fritz Springmeier, and I don't remember his history. I'm not sure if he was a CIA operative or not.
Well, they just had a copy of it, right? I believe they had a copy of it, and
that's what I believe is it was for some reason put up for anyone to see on the CIA website, which is very interesting.
Well, I think it was put up right after the president had named, I forget her name, Gina. I forget. He had appointed someone as the head of the CIA. Gina Haspel? That sound right?
I know that's a name. It was also put up not long before Q had pointed to what is P, and everybody started looking at Peseurs. And that was what I found when I was looking up Peseurs, is I immediately found Fritz Springmeier book. And I was like, whoa, what is this?
Okay.
This is the payload of the bloodlines right here. It was just incredible.
Right. And and then my that's great insight to that moment in time, because then what I was thinking was how he had just named Gina Haspel as the head of the CIA, and then that was released. Like certain things, I feel like he released the JFK files. There's been a lot of gems in that. All these things just slowly getting leaked out to the public, or even like photographs and stuff, like kind of like things that you're like, oh, where did this come from? And it just sort of starts circulating. Like, I feel like they have just dripping out. We're kind of like in the middle of it right now. So maybe we don't see the weight of it. But one day I think we're going to look back at this time and be like, man, look at how much stuff actually, and none of this stuff, we'd be still in a coma if Hillary was president right now.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. I'll speak to that, not trying to interrupt, but even MK Ultra controlled people woke up because of the fact that she didn't get elected. I have a friend who's an MK Ultra survivor, if you will, and she says that she
from
goes
Australia or New Zealand, right?
Yes, you know, Brooke, right?
Yes.
So she says, she goes, we started waking up. A lot of them started waking up when Trump was elected. So there was some kind of control cut off of them remotely. And so this is why I love talking to her, because whenever I'm feeling like I want to get mad at what Trump is doing, sometimes I just like talking to her, because she reminds me that she has been rescued from something just because of his presidency. And so that means her and a lot of people have been, and that is a big deal.
Yeah. No, and I like that you have that dynamic with her, and I love that take on it, to rein her in, to rein people like us in. Sometimes in my head too, I'm like, oh, what about this? Maybe not necessarily with Trump himself, certain things, different people doing things. I have to remind myself, like, this is not going to be clean. Like, they're like bull in China shop right now. Not everything, is going to come off, clean cut. Like, I think we're kind of like two things. I feel like, one, we're a society where it's everything now. You order it on Amazon, you want it tomorrow. You want it to come, like, and some people have been like, we were kind of like showed all this stuff, all this salacious stuff that's been going on. And now we're like, okay, well, arrest them,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of like, well, arrest them with what? Like the DOJ and all these things, that's their boys. You think they're going to put like, look what they just did to Roger Stone, look what they've been trying to do stuff where Papadopoulos had to spend a freaking day in jail. All these people, that's the enemy. Like if you arrest them, you think they're going to put Obama in jail? Like they're going to laugh at you and throw the case out. Like kind of like some of these things I feel like have to be done in a different way. And like, I don't know if it's going to be clean. I feel like part of it is the public opinion has to be so radically changed for them to do it in a different way. And that's what I feel like is a lot of the, people like, oh, trust the plan. I feel like the plan is, go wake up your buddies. I feel like we're the plan, so that's why, I've given like freaking every second of my life for the last 3 years trying, whether it be, I was doing a lot of stuff on Facebook at first, and then I started being like, screw it. My sacred YouTube channel that I didn't want to get political on for 10 years. I was like, you know what? It's been dead for 5 years. It was like dead for 5 years at that point. I'm like, I'm just going to start taking these videos I've been posting on Facebook and just post them here. And, the rest is history. But, I think that's the plan. I think, you still see some of these comments. I know a lot of them are bots, but there's still a lot of people who are like, man, if Obama was in, like, dude, do you not see what was going on by now?
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, you're right. And let's just take a look at this coronavirus, not to be annoying and bring up the dang thing that everybody's talking about, but just look at how many people are wearing masks on the right that are saying don't go outside on the right, on what I would say, but you're my people. And I'm going, Now, again, I'm going to let everybody know, I don't call the virus a hoax. What I'm calling a hoax is people like Fauci and Birx or whatever, and some of the people behind this Bill Gates stuff, which I'm sure you agree with. But I'm not saying don't be careful, but what I'm saying is I am watching people behave like just idiots, and not because they're idiots, because they're totally ignorant and they're scared and they don't understand what's going on, and yet they're getting mad at someone like me for bringing my kid. No, this hasn't happened to me, but I've heard stories of other people. They're getting mad if they bring their kids with them to the store. They're getting mad if they're buying 2 things of toilet paper, one for their mom and stuff, on both sides. We're seeing people on both sides.
Well, that's the point. Yeah, I think they took something that's bad. Like I feel like, this is just my own opinion, I feel like they released this pathogen as a maneuver, and then but I think the real hoax is that they took something that, sometimes these things happen. Sometimes there's, a different strain of virus that comes on that's bad and you have to be careful, but they've taken it with the news. I mean, nothing has ever been, no virus, no nothing has ever been made out to be this bad ever. And that was the news, and we all know what the news is. And I feel like that is part of the operation. And, for me, I could see Manhattan. Like, I walk down the block from my house and see Manhattan. So, I am in like freaking ground zero for this garbage that I do feel like they release. I do feel like they're also padding the numbers a lot, but nevertheless, it seems to be stuff going down, at least here. So, but it's like, you're in Montana. Why you can't? Montana is so much different than what's going on in the city right now. Like with people, I think they've gotten everyone's so freaked out and everyone's acting like they're in Times Square. When it's like, dude, you're in the freaking South Dakota. You're all right. Bring your kids to the store. I don't know.
Yep. And that's what I mean is what you said is right, that we're still in a place of, if something happened big, even people that are supposedly on our side will hop the fence very quickly out of fear for their own comfort or their own life.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's all I was going to say about that.
Yeah, they scared people. So that's
exactly.
But
the fear, like just like we talked about, there's fear and there's love, and right now they're working in a method of fear.
They have used the fear for sure, but in the primary universe, in the tangent universe where there is no COVID, no.
Right. But, back to the no COVID universe.
Okay. All right. So this was, when his chemistry teacher gives him the book and he starts getting into it. Or no, this is when he was talking about it. He went back to question him, right? And I think he was telling him about like Einstein-Rosen bridges and stuff like that. And
he tells him that there needs to be a metallic object, and he tells him that stuff.
Right. And then he kind of clams up, right? He's like, well, I can't tell you more. I'll get fired, which I thought was
Yep.
a cool little part there. All right. This is where they're being controlled.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's a
Yeah.
depiction of the thing that comes out of his chest. Yep.
All right. So the living receiver is often blessed with fourth dimensional powers.
There it
These,
is.
these include increased strength, which, you know, he put the axe in the freaking statue, like you were pointing out before. Telekinesis, mind control, and the ability to conjure fire and water. And I feel like this is what he uses at the end to take himself back, you know, where the tangent universe at the end of this one story connects with the beginning of the regular story.
Right.
I feel like he uses that. Let's see. And this is where they're being controlled through their rib cage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and this is where Frank takes the mask off, and you see that something is wrong with his eye.
So interesting story, real quick. They were able to show Evil Dead. You remember the creator? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I used to know his name for Evil Dead, but he let them use his footage for free. So that was kind of a cool shout out to Evil Dead dude. I've always liked him.
I used to love that. And then I forget what the sequel had later, or the third
Army
one.
of Darkness.
Yeah. I used to Sam Raimi. Yeah.
Sam Raimi, that's it. Yeah, he allowed them to use his footage, and he got no profit from any of that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, I was looking up the guy who made this. This was his first like screenplay and first thing, like he had wrote it. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I found it interesting. Evil Dead, and then The Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
So Donnie Darko says, why do you wear that stupid mask, or why do you wear that stupid bunny suit? And you remember what Frank says back to him?
No.
Why do you wear that stupid man suit?
Yes, that's right. That is, how can I forget that? It's got to be one of the greatest lines ever. And it's right, because I mean, this is just a vehicle for our soul.
Absolutely. Why are you wearing that stupid man suit? And I was like, oh, touche.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yes, so awesome.
So he asked him to take it off, and he says, "What?" He says, "Why are you called Frank?" And he says, "Because that was my father's name, and his father before him." So I don't know if that means anything or not. 3 F's, 3 6's. I don't know. Frank, and Frank.
F is the sixth letter. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Especially like you're saying with the contrast of Evil Dead and Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
And then they showed a time warping on screen, obviously.
So this would be what's called maybe a Stargate, right?
Right there. Yeah. And the Stargate. I guess in that movie, does it work on sounds, right? Or something like that?
You know what? Before all this happens, there's a part where I want to go back to where he is talking to Frank at his house. And you know how Frank puts up that kind of wall that he can't get through?
That's the cool part in their bathroom.
So that happens twice. The first time, he doesn't understand it, and he says, how can you do this? And Frank says, I can do whatever I want, and so can you, which again led me to Luciferian stuff. And then the second time, he brings a knife with him. And when he has the knife, Frank is just standing there, and he takes the knife and he tries to hit the barrier, but he's actually hitting Frank's eye that is damaged. So he's hitting at Frank.
A little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
To the end there.
You don't need to find it, because that's exactly all it is.
Right.
But just to bring it back to Frank's eye again, there is a part where they're kind of showing that, like his eye lights up and he's hitting the glass and it's hitting right on his eye, and he can't get through. But that's why he has a knife. I didn't realize it till I watched it the second time, that he brought the knife because he knew that would happen again. But just to remind you, Frank, he asked him, how can you do that? And he says, I can do anything I want, and so can you, and I can show you the way. So again, very Luciferian, satanic type of stuff. And he sees this eye, and he says, what happened to your eye? And I don't remember how he responds to what happened to his eye.
No, he doesn't. He just turns his head when he asks him that.
Okay.
Which, then we find out later. But I always thought that was interesting. Something I've always wondered is, like, all old literature, always talks about like magic and different powers and different things of the mind. And sometimes I wonder if that's been purposely suppressed from society, to keep us corralled. Maybe like we can do a lot more things than we think, like telekinesis. Like, you ever thinking something and then your buddy says it? Like, oh my God, this must have happened to me like a million times in my life. Where I'll be like, and it'd be like nothing even related to what we're talking about. And I'll think in my head, like, man, I'd go for some Taco Bell right now. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, oh man, we should go for some Taco Bell. I'm like, whoa. Like, that happened. My one buddy, Eric, and my brother, that must have happened a million times. So I feel like, I don't know. I feel like
Yep.
we have a lot more abilities than maybe. I feel like some of that's probably been hidden from us. Maybe when they burned the Library of Alexandria and stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know. That's
Yeah,
a-
and I agree
maybe-
with you, and I'll speak to that. You have to be careful who gives you the knowledge and the power, because
Ain't that the truth?
so you can access a lot of knowledge and power, and Satan will promise you that, and he will supply it. His demons will supply it. You might even be able to deal with a fallen angel. You know, they're still around. They can manifest in a form. They don't need a body like demons do.
Well, they can do it, yeah.
And that's my understanding. And so in that case, you absolutely can get a lot of power and a lot of abilities, kind of like when they introduce a vaccine or something we're all going to want. We're not there yet with the mark, in my opinion, because it's going to be something people will want just to have superpowers. It's going to corrupt DNA, and it's going to give us powers the wrong way. Now, with Jesus, before we were made in the flesh, we had light bodies. We floated, and we had not the flesh, right?
See, that's
We
how I
had-
kind of look at it. Like, the Luciferians have kind of taken this from us. Like maybe
Yes.
God wanted us to have these abilities.
He
Now
did.
they've taken it from us, and now they're going to give us back to us in a tech form that they can control.
Yes, that is exactly 100% how I believe it to be too. And we're going to want it because we've been sucked into this world, and fear of death, fear. Like when you're not afraid of where you're going after this, you're scared of maybe how you're going to die, but you shouldn't be afraid to die. But if you are terribly afraid to die, you will accept their way of life in this world and in this life. And some people will be so eager to just have superpowers, that's all they'll need. But some people will just be afraid to die, so they'll take a vaccine that will cure them or save them, or give them to
Right.
their own kids and destroy their own kids' possibility for an afterlife. So yeah,
Which
you and I are
ironically, I
100% in
feel like
agreement.
probably shaves years off all our lives.
Yeah, right. So, okay. So the next part that you have, what we see here is the portal, which opens up to an image of Jim Cunningham's house,
Oh yeah, okay. Yes, that's right. I forgot that.
and he tells him to burn it
Burn-
down
Burn
because
it down.
he found the day before or so, or maybe earlier that day, he found a wallet on the ground in front of Jim's house with Jim's ID and the address on it, so he knows where Jim Cunningham lives. Now, understand, he doesn't know why he's supposed to burn it down, but it turns out it's actually for a greater cause.
Right. And then as to go here, well, as he was walking out, I just thought this was so the Evil Dead and the Last Temptation of Christ, kind of like that duality of the two, you know.
Yep.
But the manipulated dead.
Tell me about this part, because this is the extended version.
Right. So when he walks out,
Oh yeah, the talent show.
right, and it cuts to this, and I thought that was interesting that it went from the Evil Dead, Last Temptation of Christ, to this young lady who's kind of like angelic, you know, maybe like an angel, and how it was cutting back and forth between Jim Cunningham, who was kind of like the devil in a way,
Yeah, that's a great point.
and then this stuff. I kind of hate this stuff. It's funny. Like I grew up, I have friends who I grew up with, girls who were, in the dance studios, and they would do stuff like this. Like I know it's kind of innocent, but some of this stuff. It's like sexual, and I feel
Very
like
sexualized.
it's like disgusting. But
Yep.
it's like I know good people who've done it, and obviously they grew up good and all that stuff. But it's just I don't like this whole scene. It
I don't like
bugs
it.
me out.
I also don't like it. So that lady, that big fat lady, is a talent search person.
Oh, okay.
Whatever that show was. But yeah, this is all bad. And in fact, it's very sexualized. And the girls are wearing lipstick, and they look like the girls from Simply Irresistible, with the lipstick. And that video came on when I was in a restaurant. We don't go to restaurants very often. So we're at this restaurant and that video comes on. And of course, it's got like 5 screens where we are. So my kids can see it behind me and I can see it behind them. And my daughter was like this. This is what I love. I'm so glad that my kids are not sheltered, but that bothered them. I said, yeah, this is a pretty gross video, right? And that was normal for me growing up to watch a video like that. And that's what those little girls reminded me of, with the lipstick and the dancing and the face, like the pout.
Yeah, without 100%. That was every 80s and freaking 90s video. Now, I mean, as a guy, obviously I didn't hate it. You know,
were fine with it.
But you know, it's like you don't realize what it's doing to you. It's just, and it's taking out the fun of it too when you don't realize all of that stuff. The more sex they push, well, then the more you get with your girlfriend and she doesn't live up to these standards. Not that I'm saying I've gone through this, you know, but I'm saying in a general sense, that's a way to desensitize the public as well, you know. And to me, it's funny. It's like once you realize they're all about population control, oh man, so much stuff just makes sense. It's like just so many different ways to curb population growth or stop people from, you know, from procreating, I guess.
Yeah,
But
and abortion. Well, and
right.
so here in Jim's house, he's got some stags, and just stags are similar to the goats. It's a symbol of
Right, with the horns, right?
Yeah. Just something I noticed. And yeah, they shoot back and forth between this. They slow down. This good cinematography, though. Great cinematography. I really did like this movie a lot. And this is what I like about it, is we can still enjoy movies. They can be totally like this with a lot of symbolism, but it's still a very well done movie.
Oh, 100%. And here's innocence, you know, like these girls are innocent, even though they're being, you know, put into something that's not so innocent. And that's being coupled with not so innocent. This guy turned out to be a monster and turned out to be the Antichrist, and he's burning. And then everything else there, they're all in like white costumes and shiny. So you go from the light, well, not with this, but you know, with the people, you know, the girl had the angelic, and then everything, and it all burning down.
Yep. And then he gets back, and interestingly enough, his girlfriend slept the entire time, which again is the manipulated dead. She may have just hung out and waited and not really been asleep, but she knew what he was doing.
Right. Or not even, or maybe normally would have woken up, but wasn't, you know, was kept asleep.
Right.
But, right. And then that's his alibi right there.
Yep, exactly.
And then this scene, okay, so this is an extended scene or whatever.
Yes.
It's funny because the dad tells him, you know, he's saying like, you know, they think I'm crazy, dad, and stuff like that. Oh, he says, anyone who tells you you're crazy is bullshit. They're all part of this great big conspiracy. Bullshit. And basically saying how, you know, that's the whole quote. I don't know.
Well,
I just thought that was cool. It was kind of like people who say you're conspiracy theorists are idiots because they're being used, you know, against their will as part of the conspiracy that you're trying to warn them about.
By the way, I think that we forgot to mention the part where they had a class project where they had glasses they want to put on babies. You remember that part?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think I made any notes on that, but I do remember you talking about it. Yeah.
I really want to point it out real quick because so there was a class project in that guy's class that gave him the book on the time travel and everything. And their idea, him and his girlfriend Gretchen, D0NNE-DARK0 and his girlfriend Gretchen, had come up with these. Because she said at one point to him, "Don't you wish you could maybe go back and change everything," which was also a foreshadowing, and change everything for the greater good or something like that. And so they thought about this for the kids. With kids, you could put on these glasses where they see just positive images all the time, and they called them IMG glasses. And I thought, and then the bully decides to say, "Oh, well, you could just put up murder and satanic stuff." And she's like, "Oh, that's what you would do, right?" And I'm thinking, yeah, like there's some kind of pointing to that. And it makes me think of a virtual reality, even maybe, where they're trying to, like, I had an article I covered recently of a lady who reconnected with her dead daughter, who of 7 years old, who died on a virtual reality. And I thought this is so dangerous in so many ways because it could lead to an inability to move through something in a healthy manner. But anyway, I thought about that. It seemed, you know, there was a very odd idea that they had as a class project to put what they called IMG glasses on on babies to show images, and of course somebody had to chime in and say that they'd want to put satanic images or murder images on that.
Which is what
Kind
they, of course, they would use it for, that just screw with people's heads. It's kind of what, TV has done to us in a weird way.
It could have been a nod to something they've done. Maybe it's a way that they've done things to babies and children.
Right. Just putting little things in different cartoons. Like that documentary Out of Shadows pointed out that every Disney cartoon has a friggin' horrific death of a parent.
Yes.
And I was like, man, that's such a good freaking point. And that's so traumatizing. Why would you want to freaking put that in a thing? That's like Bambi.
Yep.
Bambi's horrific. That's like hard
It
to
is.
watch.
It's so devastating. And then I remember the movie what was it? Something Littlefoot or something was the name of the dinosaur. And it just
is that Land
traumatized
of the
me.
Lost or something?
Land of something.
Land Before Time?
Land of Time. Yeah, Land Before Time. And that traumatized me. And then they came out with the one with Arlo, and Arlo's dad dies too. And you're just sitting here in tears. And one thing is I am a widow, and my kid's dad is dead, and so that's the only reason why I don't get all worked up. I'm like, well, at least these actually speak to our own life.
Yeah.
Because that is our life. We did have that traumatic, and so it kind of is like not as traumatizing to my kids because it's almost that's their life. So that's not really that weird to them. Does that make sense? I don't let them watch a bunch of Disney movies.
Totally makes sense. But
it's not as traumatizing.
That real life situation really sucked for your kids. Why would you put that on every other kid?
Right, exactly.
Make
So
someone
when
go
my
through
kids
that if
watch
they don't have to, you know?
So if my kids watch something like that, to them, they're like, well, our dad died, so that must be a thing.
Right. You're like, oh, this is what happens.
It is what happened to us. And so again, like it may not sound like it, but it is less traumatizing for my kids to understand a death of a parent. So oddly, they're not as upset about it. But well, I remember as a kid watching that stuff, just being like horrified and having to skip past it. As a child, why was I even watching something that was that traumatizing? But I didn't understand I shouldn't because it's a cartoon.
Right. And say, right, kids don't understand what's supposed to be what at that age. And they just learn, I don't know. You're just hitting them with horrible imagery. And, not just that dynamic, just so many different things. But that's what you're doing, trying to fracture their personality. Like I was watching someone with my niece a couple months ago. And, it was this cartoon and the kid's doing something bad. And then, they're like, oh, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's a lesson. They teach you not to do that. And I was thinking in my head, well, they didn't even know that existed until this cartoon. Like, they didn't know you could punch someone in their face until they watched this cartoon in the first place. So it's like through the guise of teaching you to not do something, it's almost like they're teaching them how to be, I don't know, that bad things exist. It's weird. I think it's a little more sinister than people realize.
You're right. I think we're getting close to where she gets accepted in. Oh, yeah. So he burns down the house, and this is what we find out. And talk about like confirmation bias. We find out that Jim Cunningham has a child porn ring and a dungeon to actually act out this. This is the Patrick Swayze character to act these things out. And the school has taken on this guy as a superhero, especially Kitty Farmer, who's the Christian who denies that this is even real and it's a conspiracy theory, and she's got to go save his butt somewhere. It's crazy.
And meanwhile, they found the dungeon. I mean, what's the conspiracy theory?
Exactly.
But, that's again just ripping on Christians and stuff. And but yeah, so that was thing I have here that says, oh, well, I didn't take a screenshot of it, but it says I have written down here that after showing this headline, it cuts right to Frank the Rabbit saying a terrible thing is coming. And then the field is covered in blood. Oh, no, not Frank the Rabbit. It cuts right to Watership Down.
Oh, like the book Watership Down.
Right, in the class when she's going over that.
Yeah, I haven't seen this part.
So all right. So the thing with this is Watership Down is that this rabbit's seeing a vision of all the blood, the field covered blood, but no one believes us. And that's and she talks about that then in the scene after that, where she's saying, did the people believe the rabbit's vision? And someone says the rabbits are us, Donnie. So it's kind of saying like, this is like, I guess people who are saying, yo, everything's screwed up, and people are like, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you're like, nah, man, no, like bad stuff is going down. It's kind of like I felt like a good allegory to that. And then one person in the class says, I like rabbits. They're cute and horny. And if you're cute and horny, you don't care about anything else. You just want to have sex as many times as possible before you die. And I feel like that is an allegory for what they've done to society. I mean, look at all the magazines, everything. Beauty is emphasized above all, and sex is programmed into our minds at a young age, and everything is sex, sex. I mean, if people, like if my grandparents, from when they were like, in their heyday in like the 30s and 40s were alive now, to see what's just on normal. I mean, they have Twix commercials with like, you're for them making on, yeah, over like Missy Elliott talking about like songs like sex songs and stuff, like in Twix commercials and stuff like that. And like, I'm no prude. I see it. I don't care. But it's like, man, this is all going out to kids, everything. I mean, you watch TGIF Friday, they're doing like, they're doing like BJ jokes. You're like, oh, well, that's for the adults. Like, well, guess what? All your kids just saw you laugh. And then when they ask and you say, oh, when you're a little older, and they go, okay. And then they're going to go on the computer an hour later and say, what does this mean? What's I don't want to say none, but it's like, it's just so sordid the way they've messed everything up, and everything's about sex. And again, that goes back to Brene's, one of the ways to control people is through sex. And that is society is just riddled with that. That's all anything is, even like relationships, they're all based on sex. They're not based on love anymore and stuff, Anyway, so I just thought that was an interesting quote. When they're saying like, where one they said the rabbits are us, and then next they say, oh, the rabbits are cute and horny, and all they want to do is have sex many times before they die.
Gotta sexualize it for sure.
Yeah.
Probably, I guess. Okay, so the insurance trap, that's an interesting part of the book. Does it read what it says in there?
It says the manipulated dead will set an insurance trap. The living receiver must ensure the fate of all mankind. Okay, yeah. So I guess the manipulated dead is Frank, right? So
yeah.
And the living receiver is Donnie. So he's gotta go through all this and make sure everything gets saved and save the world, basically.
Right, which is definitely how Frank comes back around to being a part of it. So we're gonna have his sister, who is actually his real sister in real life, so they did a great job acting that out well. And then they decide to have a party because she gets into some Ivy League school. Is that the next part that you have?
Yes. I have a still of it, but I would like to play it. Let me see if I can find just one part. I thought it was great when they're coming down the stairs. Oh, well, first, this is the scene where he's talking with her and she tells him to look up the book Cellar Door, because that's another piece of the puzzle. She's a manipulated living. She doesn't realize why she's telling him about this, but that's important in the end.
Yep. And also his mom leaves because Kitty Farmer is so intent on taking care of Jim Cunningham that his mom goes on a flight to the Star Search thing with her daughter.
Right. So she's not home, and then they're able to throw the party.
Mm-hmm. And that was an interesting session too he had with the that's when he tells her all the stuff and she's like, oh gosh, like what he's gonna do. And we still don't know though. But yeah, so then they talk and she says, okay, let's have a party. And then that's when they're playing Joy Division when he comes down the stairs. What were you gonna say about him coming down the stairs?
He's in the Bones costume, and you can see the Bones next walking in tandem with her, who's in regular clothes. And it's kind of like, do the dead walk with us? Is that like something like for guardian angels or something else maybe? Or maybe could be demons or guardian angels. Kind of how Frank is the manipulated dead with him.
Don't forget that guy is always in here too. He's like some kind of FCC dude that's always dressed up weird. That fat dude.
Oh,
He works
right.
for the
Yeah, he was.
FCC. He's in the very beginning. And then, of course, there's a lot of face masks that are creepy. They kind of remind you of that party back with the elite in the 70s. You know, they had the raven's nose and stuff. And then
Right.
his sister is dressed up as like Cleopatra or something. And as he's coming down the stairs, they're playing Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart. Love will tear us apart again, which is kind of interesting because he's in love with this girl. And obviously, that's going to get torn apart very soon. I love these guys. These two
Oh,
guys are
yeah.
hilarious in
They're
those
freaking great.
costumes.
It
I love his Hulk Hogan costume. It's hilarious to me.
was freaking amazing.
Yeah. Makeout scene. Ew. So what's interesting here is in a while is the mom calls and says we're on our way back, and pretty soon he's in the kitchen. I don't know where it is, but remember how it was sideways when it said mongrels rule?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Well,
hold on. Well, hold that thought real fast because this is
okay.
what I was saying. It's like the dead walking with
Yes.
the living in complete
Yeah.
tandem. That's
It is.
saying that we all have an guardian angel with us, which I do believe. Or maybe, people, maybe it's sporadic. Maybe some people have demons attached to them. Some people have angels attached to them. Maybe some people are just on their own.
Yeah, and just to mention, oddly, I like the sad face on the clock, but and
Oh,
you can see the black and white decorations in the reflection. You could see them earlier too. But what's also interesting about the group Joy Division is their lead singer hung himself at a
oh,
very
really?
young
Okay.
age, and it was right before they were getting huge in London in the UK, and they were about to come to the US for a tour, and he hung himself, and nobody really knew why. I mean, there's no instance of depression, and it could have been, they sell their souls, and they were getting huge, and for whatever reason. So here we go. He inverts here. This is the inversion, and he
Well,
looks like he doesn't feel well. Something's changing. Something's different,
look,
and
there's the Grim Reaper was just behind him too.
oh, interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Geez, good catch. And so there he's oh, that's creepy. So there goes his controller, and now it's almost like his mission is getting to a complete, but that inversion was definitely, oh, and they're asking where Frank is. Frank was at the party. So Frank's got to go get beer. That's why he's driving out there. He was there in the first place. Frank was already at that party.
Wow. That is freaking. I love stuff like this. This movie was so well done. And I
It
love this
was.
part. I love this scene right here.
Yeah. Everybody's controller is just, yeah, you go here. And now he sees it.
Everyone's just being pulled by their desires and just different outside influences.
So that must be his girlfriend or something, because the next scene you just see him. Yeah, he goes through the porthole. Oh, okay, this is
This is
interesting.
kind of everything.
Yeah, I didn't see this in my version. So that
Oh,
is
this
that's
is okay. This is what I thought was really see, that's the video game they're playing at the one point. Rad Racer used to be my freaking
yeah.
favorite.
They do a lot of this fast stuff on purpose too, to try to. They're putting imagery in there that's so fast you'd really have to slow it down to catch it all.
Right. Yeah, I love that YouTube has the option now where you
Yeah,
can play it.
that's
And it's
right.
funny, friggin' so this is the Watership Down that they put real quick, and then they put Rad Racer on top of it. So now when they played Watership Down, they were saying, "Oh, we're the rabbits." And now here's a game which is a simulation. So is that a little nod saying that we're a simulation? I don't know.
Mm,
I just thought that was cool.
for sure, this alternate universe seems to be. But yeah, and then there's computer graphics behind all that, scrolling up like a computer program
Right.
code or something.
Matrix style.
There's a skull traveling through the porthole.
So I guess since this is like the moment, that's
Yep, he
just
just knows
showing
he's got to
like,
go somewhere. So now he's gone somewhere, and he's at Roberta Sparrow's house. And what
right,
did he see? The cellar door.
the cellar door, because he was told to go into the cellar door. Oh, right. And then Seth Rogen and them kind
And
of pull him out.
what a great point. There's nothing in there. This movie is well done. There's nothing in there. They don't find anything. They don't discover anything. They just, he knows to go into the cellar door, and that's where the exchange happens, where these guys are there, the bullies are there to pull him out and pick on him again.
Right. And this whole friggin' mess.
And so basically, they knock her unconscious into the street. There's old good Roberta Sparrow standing out there, and what is she holding?
Oh, she's holding a letter.
And he says, "I've got a bigger knife this time," because he bullied him in the bathroom with a little knife.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There comes Frank, and he there's something he says here. Hold on. Deus ex machina.
Oh yeah. Deus ex machina. I forget. That means
however
something,
you say
right?
that.
But I forget what it means though. And so this is everything in this whole movie is coming to one. She's been checking her mailbox for the letter, which he had wrote, which I guess by manipulating time and somehow she had known that she was going to get that letter. Here's Frank coming back from the store to get beer, and he was at the store with them. He was just checking the cellar door, which he wouldn't have been here in the first place if it wasn't for that book that kind of subconsciously led him here, which then led the bullies to cause this whole situation, which knocked her out in the street, and then and has him, I believe, as wit's end.
So Deus, however you say it, Deus ex machina, whatever.
Deus ex machina. I've heard it before. Is the only reason why I know what it is, but I don't know what it is. I just know how to pronounce it.
It means God from the machine.
God from the machine.
So that sounds like a transhumanism type of thing to me.
Right. Like they give you back those powers, but like give it to you in a technology way that they can control, and that they could almost be a complete controller of the world for real.
Yeah. So like this, listen, the machine could either be a crane used to lower actors from above, or a riser which brought them up through a trap door. So it actually is in the drama world, or the actor world, or the screen world, or the stage world, that it was a machine that could be, it was also a machine that craned actors from above or on a riser from below through a trap door onto a stage.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which is, it's not just that. That's another part of it, though. Not just that. But that's but it talks about Shakespeare and theatrical examples, a plot device.
That's kind of like how in the old Colosseum, where they used to have the things from the bottom and they would let the lions come up and stuff like that.
Right. So real quickly, before I forget, because it's so possible that I would, there isn't a movie. So Jimmy Stewart was in a movie with a puka. And I thought of this because he walks around with a 6-foot invisible rabbit. Harvey.
Okay.
So in the movie Harvey, he has a 6-foot invisible rabbit, and he says it's a puka. And he goes, "What's a puka?" Everybody says, "What's a puka?" And it's a very cute movie. But when you look it up, the puka is an Irish spirit or ghost. And it is of Celtic folklore, considered to be bringers of both good and bad fortune. They could help or hinder rural and marine communities, which is interesting when you know anything about marine kingdom spirits. They're some of the worst, some of the darkest. The puka can have dark or white fur or hair, and the creatures were said to be shape changers, shapeshifters, which could take appearance of horses, goats, cats, dogs, and hares. They may also take, sounds to me like the
skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers, yeah. They may also take a human form, which includes various animal features such as ears or a tail. The puka has counterparts throughout the Celtic cultures of Northwest Europe. For instance, in Welsh, it is named the puka, which is similar spelling, but just different, probably said the same. And maybe none of that matters, but they've got different ones throughout that go through there. And then it goes through etymology and the nature, so I won't read all of that. But very interestingly, in the first part is that it's a spirit or ghost, and it sounds a lot like the skinwalker, like you just said. And I really wanted to bring that up because if I had any question, perfect place to pause right there for a second, was if you had any question if this was a possibly demonic character, was that it's a rabbit creature. And knowing what, looking at Harvey and the puka, seeming like an innocent movie back in the day, maybe not so much, it's but again, this what kind of invisible character is walking around with Jimmy Stewart in this movie. And anyway, again, now looking it back to Frank,
kind of a
little character.
making allusions to things that we didn't know about or understand in movies, just throwing their own little world in there and snickering to themselves. And now, people are starting to understand this stuff.
Right. So here we are. What just happened is the girlfriend got run over, and Frank steps out of the car, and he's like, Frank, what did you do? And he takes off the mask, and there's Frank. And Donnie's got a gun. And so now I think we figure out just exactly how Frank's eye gets messed up, because he's certainly acting like he doesn't know anything at this point. This guy's like, what are you doing out here? I don't know, what's happened. And there he goes. He shoots him in the eye, and that's it. So now we definitely know that Frank is manipulated dead. Probably the biggest source of all. Of course, you still don't understand it if you don't understand that he time traveled.
Right. And then here you got everything. You got the living receiver. She was the manipulated living, and the manipulated dead. And then, right. And then this is all the different pieces of the.
Well, actually, the girlfriend is manipulated dead as well, but she's there dead. Right. So, but yeah, you've got really key players all in one image there, and tells the other kid to run away. And, oh, you know what else I was going to mention about the mongrel? As far as Illuminati symbolism goes, the tongue that is sticking out, that's called the all mocking tongue. And you can find this footage, and I might just try to find it for this. I should.
Jim Carrey?
You remember when Jim Carrey came out and he kept doing this?
Right. Yeah.
And he said,
and then friggin' Jimmy Kimmel's like, oh, what's this playing dumb? Like, come on, dude. Even if you're trying to say like you're not involved, everyone knows the frig that is. Let's not be,
Yep. So I just wanted to mention that. And then what's next?
So I guess next is where he takes her up. Okay, yeah. So here is where, as the living receiver, it says he has powers, you could see him manipulate the engine, which comes off his mom's plane when she's coming home from the Star Search.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like he kind of uses it to guide it through. So it's almost making like a third copy, but he's kind of ripping it out of the tangent universe.
Right. To send back into the porthole.
Right. So it's almost like making everything right again. So this way, I thought that was so interesting. Okay, right. So here's the engine rips off. And then that's it falling. And then it kind of feels like he manipulates it. I don't know if this is trying to implicate that he kind of takes the car through or something. But either way, I was saying you need water and metal. But either way, he uses this to loop back to that moment in time and basically save her, save Frank, save everyone, and stop the tangent universe from collapse. Now it can collapse within itself without ruining the primary universe.
Right, because if he hadn't have done that, everything would have been destroyed.
Right. And now this next part I thought was interesting. This part right here. What does this look like? It looks like a million TV screens. Like, I don't know, to me, obviously we'd
it does look like that.
To me, it's like, I think of like the South Park episode where we're just a reality TV show for extraterrestrials. I don't know if that's what they're saying, but that's just where my head goes. Like, like all this is like, is this something? What's watching this?
It
something
says
watching
Purge.
all this?
That's
Purge.
interesting. Yeah, it does look like a bunch of.
It's kind of.
So it's where it's sending everything backwards. When it sends everything backwards in the regular one, it doesn't have that grid of what
Really?
you're mentioning. Mm-hmm. It just all goes backwards without that.
I'm definitely going to rewatch the regular one after this.
I know. It's a great movie. I mean, it's not like it's hard to watch again.
Oh, yeah. No, I thoroughly enjoyed.
So when he gets back to his bed, he's laughing. And I don't know what you think about why he's laughing. But I think that maybe he realizes again, kind of like reminds me of Groundhog Day, that if this has been a looping cycle, that there's been something sitting with him that while he didn't know what he was supposed to do, it's on a loop, and he knows something. And also because he's actually a living receiver, but he's also going to die that might give him a little bit of extra insight. And I think he's laughing because he finally got it right. That's what I think. But what do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Like it's over. I finally completed this mission, that God wanted me to do, and where I finally did it, and it's kind of like an elation laugh.
Yeah, and he's not afraid anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I totally did not catch that train of thought at all. And the beginning kind of doesn't make sense unless it's that. So I really like that a lot.
Yeah, it made sense to me too. So unfortunately, he goes and dies because now we go back to the original universe, and he is in his bed when the engine crashes into his house. Right. Which personally, I don't. But like you're saying, now you don't fear death. Now you know there is something else. Now, if you feel like this is your part, all right, now you can go be with that. Now you can go be in heaven. You've completed your mission. So that makes sense. But to me, it would be like, well, you know exactly everything that's going to happen. Well, now you can live in the primary universe that you just saved and like kill it. Like all the moves now. This stuff doesn't have to happen. And you could be one step ahead of the game. Like, sorry, I know I keep going on tangents, but I keep seeing I've been seeing like comments over the last couple of years. You're on different videos, and people are like, oh, this stuff is so depressing. Being awake is depressing, and I kind of see it as the other way around. Like, no way, dude. You know the scam now. Once you know the system, like, people are like, oh, what if they can't? What if it's not taken down? Or what if we don't wake up enough people? And well, one, you were already living in this system, happy and blissful. You know what I mean? So now that you know what's up, you can, keep living happy and blissful. But now like if they're pushing a stock and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you got to get this stock, blah, blah, blah. It's probably a pump and dump. Like these guys control the whole system. They're not telling you the stocks they really want to go up or something like, different things like that. Once you know their motives, you could almost like exist and you could almost kill it. You could just, I don't know. I think you know what I'm trying to say, but it's almost like, yeah, it sucks knowing what's going on, but it's also like you were happy before you knew. So be happy still. And now this stuff's getting exposed, so you can be happy about that. And also, there's scams. Certain things, how they seed information. Now you can watch a movie and enjoy it without being susceptible to their little manipulations they put in. Because I'm sure like people don't write movies and be like, this is going to be the white guy being racist part. I'm sure they get a list of maybe 5 or 6 things, 10 things that you have to kind of shoehorn in somewhere, and they just shoehorn it in the innocuous part. And that's that, and they don't think much of it. They got to make their movie. I'm sure like a lot of maybe some of the writers are malicious, but I'm sure not all of them and stuff like that. But now you could watch certain things without being subjective. Now you're not in danger of those things anymore. So it's almost like, I feel way more hopeful than not. They have just to speak on some of the despair that I've seen. You should. The despair is a personal desire and expectation that shouldn't be there, because when you need it to be personal to match your belief system and what you desire, you're going to be let down. That's simply how it's going to go. And so we have to, this is why I've been telling people, and you'd hear this if you've come on any of my live stuff recently, and is that I've been asking people, I've been saying, I need help with my attitude, and pray for my attitude. Would you help me with my attitude? Or would you pray for, and so I'm admitting that it's my attitude that's the problem, not the stuff that's going on around me. That the stuff that's going on around me is not the problem, it's me. I've known this all along. You're absolutely right. We have this belief and desire for our lives and our comforts, and they have been warped. They have been changed, and that's not fun for us. We don't like that, but that's me. That's me stuff. If I'm going to sit here and think about me, then I'm going to be in despair, and I'm going to be depressed. What we have to remember is, if we read the book of Revelation, God is in control. He's allowing everything to happen that's happening. And if we don't like it, well, then we should pray. And if we're not praying for that to change, then we're part of the problem. I wanted to mention, again, real quick before we finish the movie, when the movie ends, and you don't need to show it, it's not necessary. When the movie ends, it's playing the song Mad World, which was originally done by Gary Jules, but was redone by Tears for Fears, interestingly enough, later. But it's a great song, one of my favorite songs. And I get it in my head, and it's that my best dreams, I think he says something like, when my best dreams are the dreams where I'm dying. Hold on, I can pull up the lyrics real quick. But
I think that's
totally,
a great sequence where it's just going through all the different characters, everyone who's kind of
yes.
played
Oh,
out
I
in this
was,
whole thing, and that's
yes.
shot really well. That is a really
It
great
was
scene.
so good, and I cried. And I'm not going to say that out of a joking stance, because you guys, that's where I was sitting here thinking, this is a well done film. It's brought out this emotion in me, and it's working, and it's okay. I can tear up because I can see the truth. This is why people shouldn't be in despair. This is why you can still watch movies like this. This is why you can still listen to the music you want to listen to, as long as it's not putting a negative effect on your mind and your soul. But the interesting lyrics to this song is, I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. And that's just so interesting of a song to end with. And it's the original version. It's played very slowly. When Tears for Fears did it, it's very sped up and not really to my liking. But just a perfect song to end on, to show. And what I found interesting is, in the beginning, when they didn't know if he was dead or alive, nobody looked worried or scared or concerned in the alternate universe. But now, when they played Mad World, these people looked. I mean, you look at Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she looks like she's literally imagining her brother dead. She probably played that part thinking that Jake Gyllenhaal had died, right? She probably brought that into her mind and was able to make a face that just looked like, I just lost my brother. And everybody looked so sick. The dad's crying, he's holding the little girl, and it was so moving to me. And then, like you said, all the characters come into play. The girlfriend rides up on her bike, was never his girlfriend, and she says, "What happened?" to some neighbor kid, and he goes, "Well, my neighbor just died." And she's like, "Oh, did you know him?" And he's like, "Yeah." And they wave to the mom, and it's almost like there's a haunting of knowledge.
Almost like, I felt like almost maybe like a very dim copy might have stayed with the girl, because she was with him when he went back through, and I almost took that as, maybe she remembers but doesn't know what it means, or maybe she remembers inklings of things but doesn't know why she remembers.
There's a memory, like a vague memory of it, a haunting. That's why the mom, I think, kind of waves back.
Right. Yeah.
They kind of remember each
cool.
other in a way that they don't.
They don't.
It's not like it confuses them.
There. Yeah.
They're not confused, like, why am I waving at you? But it's almost like, I know you, and it's okay. So, yeah, again, great ending to a great film. I'm glad that we did this, because I certainly did not understand one iota of this movie the first time I watched it. I was a kid. I wasn't even trying to understand it. So pretty fun for me.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. And that was cool. That was, I feel like it touched on so much. It kind of allowed us to go into a lot of different things there. And that was cool.
Frank was clearly haunted by it, because he was drawing the puka and making sculptures of it. The bunny rabbit, I call it the puka. And if you recall, he touches his eye at the end.
Does he? I didn't even pick up on that.
He touches his eye as if a memory of something to his eye.
Yeah, the movie was so well done. I love like things that are just like beautifully put together like that. It was like, it's like art. Well, I mean, movies is an expression of art, of course, but yeah, no, that was awesome. This was a good one. This is definitely a cool one to go through for sure.
Yeah, and if only we could show it. I mean, we kind of did, but if only we could try to show it like last time, that was fun. But at the same time, this is good, because we get more conversation in, we get more of our personality in there. And I know that people like that, and they enjoy that about who we are. They like knowing who we are more than the movie sometimes.
That's cool. I'll take your word for
it. You don't read your comments? People love you, man. Come on.
It's people, I have cool. I have a very, very cool subscriber base. I will say that. Very informed, awesome subscriber base.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna remind people that you have a Patreon account, and that you are one of these people that, while you weren't necessarily affected because of COVID, you're affected in your job and your work business that you're normally used to doing. And people should definitely go to your patron and be willing to, what's $1 a month or $5 a month, you know, and I
It's
think
cool.
that's
Yeah. In like theory, you're like, well, I got 100,000 subscribers. If 10,000 of them did $1 a month, you know, that would change your life forever. But you know, it's hard. A lot of people, I think, uh, would maybe rather a PayPal. You know, I haven't looked into that yet, but it's weird because it's like it's really keeping me afloat. You know, I'm up to about 450 a month, but I'll probably be able to last a couple more months thanks to the Patreon than I would. The Patreon I've gotten so far has helped me, and it's going to keep me afloat for a couple more months longer than I would have. Hey, it's worth it. It's I don't know. I'm very much believe in what's going on, and I'd like to help. That's why I didn't have a Patreon for the first year and a half, because I was just so focused on doing it, you know, and people were like, dude, you know, like people would help you, you know. So
Yep.
eventually I did it.
People need to know that your channel is not monetized, that
No.
as many views as you have never ever partnered with YouTube, which is a great thing, because I'm actually glad that I'm not partnered with them anymore. So fine, they got rid of me. I'm okay with it. I wasn't making a lot anyway, but you know, I would ask people to consider your patron, because you are literally doing this work to help people. You've never partnered with YouTube, and it's a worthy cause. Your videos are fantastic. They're so well done. I send them to my mom, and I sent her the 9/11 one because I talked to you earlier before we recorded that if my mom is going to listen to me on other stuff, which she apparently has decided to do, God bless her, and I'm so thankful to the Lord Jesus Christ for that, then I sent her your video and I said, would you consider 9/11? And she said, wow, you know, that's a well done video. And so you put things together in such a great fashion that it's not, and I'm going to tell everybody, it's not biased at all. I can watch your stuff and I don't go, oh, he's just pushing this agenda or that thought. It's just the facts, ma'am. That's all it is.
Yeah. I try to be fair, you know what I mean? I know, you know, obviously we all have our own biases, so I just try to stick to what's the information saying. Like, oh man, like I can't even express to you how much I love GW. Even to this day it's hard for me. I'm like, in my head I'm like, I try to reason like, well, you know, what chance did he have in life? That guy, you know, he would have never had a chance to ever be anything that he was because of his father. You know, I still try to reason it out in my head, but it is what it is. You know, the info shows me something different, and that was pretty depressing. But you know,
Yeah. So what is your patron? How do they find you there?
it's in the description box of any of all my videos, and it literally click on any one of my random videos.
Yep.
And there will be a
Can
link
find
to it in there.
So I'll just put up also in my description box what it is, and then I've talked about this before that you're on Instagram, so I'll put links to that. I can link your Twitter account, and is there any? You're also on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook is interesting. I made a group on Facebook, and everyone just fights with everyone, and then everyone's like, why aren't you kicking out the shills? I'm like, well, I'm working on videos. You know, like I don't have time to sit there and monitor the group
That's
at all
what
times.
moderators
I
are
would like
for.
to, you know, I really probably need some moderators. One thing that I thought that was interesting is that like a month or two ago, YouTube did open up my super chats, and it says that I'm monetized, but I have a lifetime ban on monetization. So on the one thing it says I'm approved for it, but when I click it, it's still that lifetime ban comes up. So that's why there's been no commercials or anything. So there was some kind of glitch that has allowed me to get super chats, which is awesome. You know, I don't do live streams, so I guess, you know, I want to in the future. So maybe, you know, maybe that would be cool. And then right on the premieres, there's been people who have donated, which I don't even know if they realize how much of a help that is. But
I think they do.
For as long as that lasts, it'll be cool. Like I said, it's funny because it says it has a green bar in it for the first time forever, but it still says a bar on the top says you are permanently banned from monetization. So, you know.
Well, as much as you don't, you know, partnering up with YouTube costs, because they might even, sometimes I think I'm glad I'm like, wow, I don't even have to worry about playing certain songs anymore, because I know that they're not going to pull it down for the song.
Right.
They're just going to say copyright.
That's how I've been for 10 years. I've been popping copyrights since like 2009. And who cares? You know, like I never cared. You know, it was just a place where I posted my videos. So.
Well, I don't know if you know, but just like you appreciate your patron donations, I appreciate your friendship. And I think this is a fun thing. I think this is I think this is great. I think that you and I have actually been through some kind of tumultuous stuff once in a while. And what I love is that we come out the other side and we don't end a friendship over it. Now, of course, if I ever did anything so offensive you had to end the friendship, that'd be horrible. But I'm glad that so far it's not the case.
I'm easy. Listen, there's tons of things we disagree on, and who
Well,
cares? Well,
and
whatever.
what's
I mean,
great is
why should we all be carbon copy robots of each other? None of us know for sure a lot of this stuff, so it's fun to have
it
different
is.
theories and stuff.
If more of us could be, and I've had to learn, I'm talking about me here, if more of us could be more understanding of people's opinions. And I was just reminded recently by a friend, just to let you know, because I appreciate being checked. I'll tell you that. It's not a problem for me, because I just made a friend feel stupid, apparently. And she said, I love that you have other ideas. She said, but when you make people feel stupid, or, you cause them, or you're maybe not even trying it, but it causes people to feel stupid, that's just not a good way to deliver that information. And I thought, boy, of course it's not. And I actually knew that before she told me, thank you, Jesus, that I had been in prayer about it. And I knew I just needed to apologize. But this still happens. No matter how Christian you are, or no matter how right-wing you are, or left-wing you are, you're still going to do something that can be offensive to somebody. And if we can come out the other side and talk about it, that's the biggest and best way we can do this. We should actually let's not let the Hegelian dialect affect us. Let's try to not unite like the New World Order uniting, but let's try to not hate and fight just because somebody isn't where we are.
Right. Unite as free thinkers who want to be done with all this. You got to think this way. You got to believe this. You got to believe this. You got to do this. Yeah. Like, oh man, it's exhausting after a while. Like, that's why I love the phrase, where we go one, we go all. If I knew it was going to blow up like this, I named my channel that in June of 2018 before, I don't want to say it, Papa algorithm, before that went mainstream. And then obviously when I got one of my videos shared in February of 2019, then it was like, oh, look at the name of my channel. Like I am directly representing this now. I better bring the heat. What I mean? I remember like thinking, I'm like, do I change my name? Like, I don't want to, like, what if I mess up? Like, I don't want them to be mad at me. Like I started getting all like subconscious, and I was like, nah, man, you just got to bring it. Like, this is it, friggin'.
And everything you do is so well done. And again, coming from a Q standpoint, you don't just sit here and go, well, Q is it, guys. And if you're not following Q, then don't follow me. You've never, ever, ever been like that. And I think anybody who disagrees or doesn't even like the Q program, but is a right-wing person, should get on board with your videos, because they don't push they don't push an agenda at all. In fact, like I said, it's just the facts. And it doesn't matter if you like Q or don't like Q. You are a person that is presenting facts, not even much of an opinion. You're sometimes throwing out there, maybe this means that, but it couldn't get better than the way that you do it.
Yeah, but I try to just make it people know, like, this is a theory, like and like half my videos don't even mention Q, but
no, they
most
don't.
of those things are it's my best leads. I take leads from everywhere. I want to know everything. I want to know even people I disagree with. I want to know what they think, and I take it from everywhere. And man, I gotta admit, the Q drops are just the absolute best leads I've ever found. They have led me to so much information. So I will always, I'm happy that I rep it, like that I'm connected to it. The only time I ever do something is people leave nasty comments sometimes, like, you're an idiot. How could you believe in Q? Blah, blah, blah. Like, you stupid. You're leading us to the slaughter. And I just block them at the speed of light. I blocked so many people. I've probably blocked 10,000 people over the last 10 years. I learned that a long time ago on YouTube.
Don't feed the trolls.
Are angry. People are mean. Like, I would upload like an acoustic song, and people would be like leaving like, a lot of positive comments, and some people just leave nasty comments, and I'm like, we're blocked forever. Just because I don't have time. I was trying to have goes with people in the beginning and be like, no, well, actually look at it like this. I was like, you spend your whole life doing that. So,
Yep, and I get a hard time because I like D0NNE Lab, and they're Christian. I mean, like biblical rap and hip hop.
Right.
And
yeah. You showed me the videos you made are cool. Yeah.
Right. And most people just don't like it, and I continue to play it every time I go live. I'm like, I don't care because I love it. And I
That's awesome.
stand by them, man. And what's so funny is somebody will say, terrible music, blocked. Oh, a
People
horrible song, blocked.
people are crazy with the music. Oh, people are so. I mean, I guess as a lifelong musician, I guess I get it, but oh man, all the time. But people are like, what's with the background music? So I stopped doing that like a year and a half. But I still like some of my early videos. I like making musical montages. That's what I started my channel for 11 years ago. And people will be like, comment on videos like 2 years ago. What's the music? Turn it off. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You can't just turn it off. That's it. It's the video. That's what I uploaded.
I'll go turn it off.
You know, it's like I did stop doing that a year and a half ago. Watch some of my other videos, you know, and like now, like I like to put a little montage at the end sometimes because I love doing that stuff. And people, even now, it'll be like a 2-minute montage at the end. And some people always comment like, dude, relax, man. Freaking people are psycho.
I have advice for people who don't like that music. Skip it, mute it, whatever.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to listen. And this is why I love Paul Romano, because he makes me laugh when he does his little comment videos, because he'd be like, it's not like I sat you down and put headphones on you and forced you to watch this video.
Thank you. Like skip the video then. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like plenty of things that I'm sure you would love.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not here for your entertainment. But yeah, so you get it, I get it, and I think that people, they're starting to get it. I have a good community, you have a good community, and we're grateful for our community big time. And I'm excited to get this out there. I've been wanting to talk about it for like a couple weeks now. So we've done it, we did it, and now we got to maybe think of something down the road that we can do that'll be fun.
Yeah, I think there's so many cool things. So we'll definitely keep in touch and figure something out for the next one.
Well, I appreciate you, and God bless you.
Nice.
But God bless you, and thank you for being here, and good night.
All right, Erin, a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see the finished product after you're done cutting it up.
I'll do my best.
Just cut out all my ums and thinking crap where I'm just looking for stuff.
I'll do my best. All right.
All right, take care.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's It's a very, very